The Tiverton Town Council meeting for October 22nd, 2018 is called to order. Will you please stand and join in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, can you please do the roll call?
Adam Molly,
Here. Present.
Evan Duda,
Present.
Aiden Simos, Alexander McKevick,
Present.
all present.
We are the Weebles 2, down from the Tiverton, Little Compton Pac-10 Cub Scouts. We are working on our final requirements to achieve our Arrow of Light in order to cross over from Cub Scouts to Boy Scouts. We are currently working on earning an adventure pin called Building a Better Future. This adventure focuses on ways that we can become better citizens in our community, our country, and our world.
One of the requirements for this adventure is to meet with town leaders and learn about government and issues facing in our town. With the upcoming election on November 6th, we thought this was a perfect time to be learning more about how our town government works. We are hoping that everyone who is able will go out on November 6th to vote for the future of our town and our state. We want to thank the town council for inviting us here today and giving us the opportunity to participate in this meeting. This part of the meeting is adjourned.
Finish, he's got a little more. Go ahead.
Will the town council member, welcome to Senator Felag tonight. Will the town council members please come to the table?
Good job, Bo.
I didn't. Oh, you asked about when that might work.
Mine's working, I'm ready to eat it.
I don't think it's hooked up. So it's
That's
active.
my agenda. Not my agenda.
This is mine, yeah.
All right, I lost my agenda.
I can bring them around again.
We have to do the pledge of allegiance again? That'll help.
How are we looking over there? That's all right, John can have mine, I can talk loud enough. You want one piece like that?
All right, we're going this route. Everybody's shifting.
Hold on.
So you got this one. I got this one. Back to my OG mic
already pissed
for the last meeting.
Tony, what's happening? You know, it all depends who you ask, I guess. Oh, no, actually, I'm half left.
For our final meeting.
Call, please, a second roll call.
Counselor Perry,
Present.
Counselor Shabbat,
Present.
Counselor Ryan.
Present.
Counselor Hilton.
Present.
Counselor DiMederos.
Present.
Counselor Edwards.
Present.
Counselor LeBeau.
Here.
All present.
Before we start, I'd like to add an item to the agenda per RIGL 42466. I'd like to add the Town Farm Playground. I'd like a second, please.
Second.
Motion's been made in second. All those in favor? I added this item because I don't know if you're all aware, and I know Councilor Edwards and I are, that there was a safety issue with the playground a couple of weeks ago where a child fell through the top of the playground and got a small abrasion, but nevertheless, he got injured. Since then, we have taped off that playground, and we're trying to make a decision on what we're going to do with the playground. On Saturday, I guess because of the windstorm, a lot of the tape was blown off, and there were children playing on the playground once again. I got a phone call and pictures from parents showing me the playground and the kids on it. So the police chief and I went down after I tried to get in touch with the town administrator, and we pretty much saran wrapped the whole thing. You can't get in it at all right now. I know the Recreation Committee is aware of it. I know, but I would like to have an update and some kind of information on what we will be doing about this. I also would like to bring to light that the trust does have an engineer that will come down and look at the playground and decide whether it's safe and give recommendations. And I don't know if that's been done, but that might be something that we may want to look into. Town Administrator?
Thank you, Madam President. When this was first brought to our attention, actually I had just spoken with the DPW Director, Mr. Rogers, about the conditions at the playground and at playgrounds more generally in town, because this is not the only place where we have some issues with the condition of the equipment. At that time, we had said that if in fact we had unsafe conditions, we needed to remove them. And also that it would make sense to do an inventory of all the recreational facilities to make sure we were aware of any unsafe conditions and come up with a plan to address them one way or another. The director actually did an amazing job, I thought, in the 3 days following that weekend. Visited all the playgrounds, did a pretty exhaustive report of the various conditions as well as what it would take to repair them where it looked like they could be repaired, whether it's by replacing parts that had been disappearing for some reason or removing parts that were damaged that had needed to be replaced. That would take some work because you need to find out who makes the material, whether it's still available, and then come up with a plan. But again, the main principle remained that if we had situations that were immediately unsafe, we needed to remove them. We don't want to take that risk. There are different perspectives on which equipment is unsafe or can be upgraded and repaired to make them safe relatively easily, and that's still being worked on. We also had a meeting with the Recreation Commission to talk about this, to talk about the report that the director of DPW had done, and agreed that although there are other issues we need to discuss with the commission, these kinds of situations need to be addressed first. After this weekend, after your call and speaking with others, myself and the director went out there today. I wanted to see for myself what the situation was. We have a lot of older material, and actually it is pressure-treated wood of the kind and age that doesn't age well, so that when it gets older, it becomes not only worn, but it starts to splinter, and it can create problems, in particular with children. So I'm leaning strongly to bring down the larger part of the playground there, because it's very involved to try and replace, single individual components, even though some of it could be salvaged, but it would probably take a long time to replace everything. Also, in the meantime, although I was initially not aware of this, there were plans by private parties to address the situation and actually replace either the whole playground or part of it. I still don't know because I've never talked directly to the people involved. So where I'm currently leaning, my recommendation would be to plan to take it down as soon as possible, and at the same time, try to make sure that as we do that, we keep in mind what this group might have a plan for, so that we help prepare the place as much as possible. I'm not quite sure if that plan is still active. I was just talking to David Paul about that, so I'm going to find out tomorrow whether that might still go forward, because perhaps we can just have, one happen immediately after the other. That's the current plan.
I understand that there is a group in town that's willing to do major fundraising so that we can put that up as soon as possible. I'm sure we could have a lot of community involvement here, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that actually could help us put it up. I encourage the people who wanted to do this to come forward and to work with the town council and the recreation committee. We need a playground. I know a lot of the kids will miss it, so we need to put it up as soon as possible.
And if I may make a suggestion, I think it would be great if everybody worked with the town council and others, but I think they might want to work with the DPW and myself as well
Of
to
course,
actually
of course.
get this going.
Of course, but I'm sure some of the town council would be more than willing to help with the fundraising and help with the, make sure the people out there is aware that this is going on. Thank you. Go ahead. Any council like to say anything?
I would just like to add, I know that the Interlocal Trust has a certified playground inspector, and, they cover us insurance-wise. I would really like to see, since that's a free service that's offered to their clients, including us, I would really like to see us take advantage of that and have, a certified playground inspector come down and look at this and make recommendations. I think not only do they have an expertise that probably none of us have in terms of evaluating playgrounds, but I'm also thinking that by involving them, that potentially lessens any of our liability because we're taking advantage of this. So somewhere in this, sooner rather than later, I think that it's a no-brainer to ask them to come down and help with this.
I also think that while we have them available in town, we should have them look at all the playgrounds, including the Pecasset School one, because I hear there's some issues there.
That's what we had talked about with the DPW director. I was going to use that phrase, no-brainer. If only I had known that the trust actually had this particular expertise, which I had no idea about. And that's sort of the problem with these situations, that a lot of information only comes out when something bad happens. And, we'll respond immediately. We'll certainly ask for their, and they usually come very quickly if they have to inspect something. So that should be happening this week.
I think the only reason why I know it is Miss Hilton went onto the trust's website and found the information out, so it is readily available for anyone who wants to look.
Although to clarify, in fairness, I found it out when we were starting the Grinnell's Beach work, and there was an old playground there, and the prior administrator looked at that, so I did have an experience with this once before, and that's how I knew the resource existed.
Just one comment, if there's any, might look for some grants as well to help with funding. And I'm sure you will look into that. Thank you.
I think there probably is grants, Joe. Anything else?
Madam President?
Yes.
I'll just add that since, I'm I'm the only counselor here who was a child when this playground was erected. And I've lost some friends, some friends have lost some collarbones because of it. So it's sad to see it go, because obviously I did have a good experience when I was a child. But having gone down and taken a look myself, I'm glad that we are moving forward to remove this the playground apparatus, because it did look like a safety concern. So thank you, Mr. Administrator, for taking care of that.
I hope they hit their collarbone when they were younger, not now.
Not now.
Okay.
No.
Well, I would like to add that my 28-year-old was 3 years old when this was put up, and I was part of the parent group that was there. So it's a very old playground.
Madam President, I
Yes.
am childish, so I want it fixed.
We'll be up there on the first time that we erect a new one, Randy. Okay. Consent agenda. Approval of regular session council meeting minutes, September 24th, 2018. Councilor Edwards, absent, abstained. Approval of regular session council meeting minutes, October 1st, 2018. Councilor Edwards abstains, absent. Approval of executive session meeting minutes of October 1st, 2018. Councilor Edwards abstains, absent. Receipt of minutes from the following boards and commissions: the Board of Canvassers, 8. The Cemetery Commission, 1. Economic Development, 3. Tiverton Open Space and Land Preservation Commission, 2. Tiverton Prevention Coalition, 1. Correspondence received and filed: Newport County Prevention Coalition, Raising Healthy Teens. Susan Anderson, disagreement with Planning Board decision regarding Wingover Farms Solar Development Project. 4, approval of tax assessor abatement. Town Administrator Department monthly reports for September. Town Administrator, Police and Fire overtime reports for September. Town Planner and AO report of activities for September. Approval to schedule a public hearing on November 26th for personal tax exemption. Treasurer Denise Charette, September monthly budget and revenue reports. Would any councilors like to take anything off the consent agenda?
Madam President. Councilor Ryan, after you.
Councilor Ryan.
A8, please.
A8. Councilor Edwards.
A9, please.
A9.
Madam President,
Councilor Edwards.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the remainder of the consent agenda, items A1 through A7.
Second.
Motion's been made and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. CA8, approval to schedule a public hearing on November 26th for personal tax exemption. Councilor Ryan.
So I just wanted to know where this was coming from, and is this something that we're putting forward because of, are we trying to do compliance with the state or not? There's nothing, I don't know where this is coming from. So,
Well, it just
and that's where I
happens.
thought it was coming from.
There he is.
But I just wanted to make sure, so.
Good evening, David Robert, Tax Assessor. If you recall, earlier this year in the General Assembly, we had submitted to them some legislation to pass a amendment to the state statute that changes the personal exemptions from a value-based exemption to a tax credit. In doing so, part of the amendment to the state statute was that we were going to create a local ordinance that would regulate the dollar amounts provided. So that's what this is doing.
Okay. So we're just going to be in compliance with the state
State statute that's been amended, yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Madam President,
Yes.
motion to approve CA8.
Excuse me, before you continue, Dave is correct, but I just wanted to mention that Nancy is asking us to clean up the ordinance, and this ordinance is part of that package also. Sorry.
So I have a motion to accept CA8 with a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Councilor Edwards. CA9, Treasurer Denise Charette, September monthly budget and revenue reports.
Sure. Is the treasurer here by chance? I see her. I have a question for you, Madam Treasurer. So on the back page here, I'm looking at the gaming revenue, account 4915. Shows month to date, year to date, about $11,000, a little bit under. Obviously, there's some numbers floating around town that project this to be double our original budget amount, and I was just curious if you had any input, because simple mathematics tells me that 1 month at $11,000, we're not even going to make $786,000.
Well, what also we've received, for the month of September, $148,000. But of course, we didn't receive that until October, so it won't be recorded until October.
Gotcha.
Because we're on a cash basis.
Okay.
So people are kind of extrapolating that.
Gotcha.
And it's coming out to about $1.5 million, if that's the case.
If.
If.
Thank you.
Thank you. Madam President, I'll make a motion to approve CA9.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. I'd like a motion to bring forward C, Town Council sitting as a Board of Licensing.
So moved.
Motion's been made in second. All
We need a
those.
second.
Second.
Okay.
I thought I heard a second.
Oh, okay. Speak
Motion
up, Joe.
been made in second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Michael Napolitano, DBA McCrae's Seafood, 115 Stafford Road, request approval for full liquor license serving indoors and outdoors. Is Mr. Napolitano here? I know he is, I saw him. Hi, Mike.
How you doing?
Would you like to talk about your request?
Really, I just kind of wanted to open up the restaurant to some new, I just feel like it's hard to compete with other restaurants right now, especially when there's games going on, or if someone just wants to go have a beer with their friend, have some dinner, have a glass of wine. I feel like I can't do that, and I feel like it's kind of hurting the business, so it kind of makes sense to me that I should at least try to apply for this, so I could be a little bit more competitive with all the other businesses around town.
Nancy, any problems?
Well, I'm not sure I mean, there shouldn't be a problem in granting, but I'm not going to be issuing till I have everything completed. I don't know if you had the inspections and all yet, and if you've completed your work.
I've had everything on the checklist that's required from the town completed. I mean, if there's something, other things that we need,
You know, I just haven't seen that he's completed the checklist. I spoke to him before on it, so I don't have a problem with granting it. I'll make sure everything's done before I issue.
Well, if you read the background, it looks like a lot of people have weighed in on this. And there doesn't seem to be any problems.
Madam President, with that said, I'd like to make a motion to grant the liquor license.
Second.
Beat me to it.
Advertised, right?
Yes, it's been advertised, correct?
Yes.
Yes. So I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Don't you have to open it up to the public?
Yes, I do. I'm sorry, John.
Thought I mentioned that.
Thank you very much.
Public hearing.
I'd like to open this up to the public at this time. Would anyone in the public like to discuss this? Thank you. Roger, just introduce yourself.
Oh, well, I will.
Okay.
I don't remember my name until I open my eyes. Good evening, everybody. We meet again. My name is Roger Belanger. I live at 125 Stafford Road in Tiverton, Rhode Island. For the purpose of not embarrassing myself trying to say Michael's last name, who we've spoken before, so I'm just going to call him Michael or McCrae's and leave it at that so I don't look too bad.
Napolitano, I believe.
Yeah, it's easy for you to say. Anyways, yeah, I respectfully request that the council deny the McCrae's Seafood request for the liquor license, the serving indoors and outdoors. Michael and I have had brief conversations regarding his business, and I believe him to be a responsible person and certainly not the worst neighbor in the or business in my area, that's for sure. He has assured me of his intention to continue to try and be a good neighbor. I, however, still have a number of concerns. Approving a full indoor-outdoor license allows much more than just a beer with a meal. It's kind of open-ended at this point. It allows something that could escalate into day and night hours of outdoor drinking, and there are many families in the neighborhood nearby going for evening strolls, and in my case I have daughters, a wife, elderly in-laws, and grandchildren that will be a scant few feet away from the seating area. They deserve the right to be able to safely come and go, or be in the yard without intimidation from drinking patrons. I should be able to see my grandchildren play in the yard without concern of what they will be hearing or seeing or hearing with anybody that's out there drinking. Calling the police if issues do arise does nothing but put a target on my back with the patrons, and So it's just not worth it. It's not a solution. Secondly is, who's going to monitor the sound levels? The sound ordinances in Tiverton are pretty useless. I've had my experience with trying to get other disturbances taken care of, and the range of the sound, the decibel level, it's ridiculous, and it does no good. So it's just a matter of having something on the records to say that you got a law, because nobody's really adhering to it. While I hope and I believe Michael to be sincere in wanting to keep a tight wrap on the business, the fact remains that things change. The next owner, if one, may want to stretch and expand the business further and may not be as reasonable to deal with as Michael is. My last comment, and not focusing solely on Michael or his business, is lately there seems to be a little bit of an attitude in the town where we just, if you own property, you own a business. It's the Wild West all over again. Do whatever you want. We don't have any laws. Just let everybody do what they want because they own the business. And it shouldn't be that way. I don't want to advocate handcuffing people that from doing business when they want to or doing what they want on their own property. However, when actions that people take adversely affect neighbors or risk patron safety, such issues need to be taken seriously. Just because somebody has the right to do something doesn't make it okay. People should have a reasonable expectation of safety, security, and peace. In the interest of not extending my comments any further, I'll hold back citing any specific examples at the time, but I'd be happy to share if asked. Michael, this is directly to you. I wish you a successful business. I really do. And but thanks for understanding that being neighbors is a partnership where both parties have to give and take in order to have a good relationship. And I thank you all for listening.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak? Sally?
Sally Black, Broadview Drive. I agree with everything he just said about being neighbors, about being respectful. And ever since Michael's come to this town, the minute he got here, it was all in with the community. I mean, it was unbelievable with Tiverton Celebrates and all the different things. What can I do to help? And I know, I've been sitting in that chair for 14 years now, seeing businesses come and go. I know personally, if you have a restaurant with a beer and wine license and not liquor, it's very difficult to compete with everyone else. So I think I would encourage, we say we're going to be business friendly. This man has come before us. He's shown that he's a good citizen. And he's been working so hard to listen to everything, move his tiki shack here, move it there, put it wherever anybody wanted it. And I think he's shown that he's going to listen. I know if you have a problem, you'll have a show cause hearing. We've had them here. And then if they lose, the Tiverton Prevention gets some money, which is a good thing for the schools. But I just hope that we can support the people that come here in good faith and build this town, and always, always respect the neighbors, of course. But I think Michael has shown that since the minute he came here, that that is what he's going to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sally. Anyone else?
How you doing? William McLaughlin, Fish Road, Tiverton. I think we have an opportunity here where the town has in the past not been so good to business in the business climate. We got a bad reputation for it. This gentleman's neighbor has admitted he's been a good neighbor. I think there's an opportunity to work a compromise here. I see no reason not to give him the license, but in a compromise, maybe restrict his outdoor hours, but allow him inside for whatever he's open. We've got to have some sort of compromise where businesses aren't afraid to come into this town because of, no offense, or bad neighbors. We've all encountered them. He has legitimate concerns, but there's no reason we can't work with this gentleman.
Thank you, Bill. Mrs. Pelletier?
Barbara Pelletier, Bonnyfield Drive. It seems to me when Mr. Belanger chose to live up on Stafford Road, it was already a fairly busy road next to a little mall, and one would expect, if one chooses to live there, to find a certain amount of noise that might vary within the years, but it's a lifestyle, that it's a choice that somebody made, and the business world can't adjust to that. It is what it is.
Thank you, Barbara. Roger?
in the interest of manners, I'm not even going to comment on that. Michael, I would be, and we've chatted already, and I hope you don't mind me directing this directly to Michael, because we've had a few conversations.
Go ahead.
You know, if there is, you know, room for compromise or whatever, and we can talk and kind of iron this out, I'd be more than happy to do it. You know, I'd be willing to work with you. Like I said, I'm not trying to be a jerk, and I know you're not trying to be a jerk. There's a couple of people that need to figure out a way to live next to one another, okay? And, yeah, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going there.
Thank you, Roger.
Just some people should just mind their own business.
Thank you, Roger. Have a nice day. Anyone else from the audience like to comment before I close the public hearing? Anyone else? I'll close the public hearing now. I just have a couple of questions. What are your hours? I don't have your original license on me.
You know, I'm still trying to
Because
figure.
it's changed, right?
Right now, it's just Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Okay.
But I mean, obviously, I'd like to expand those hours, but I definitely do not plan on having people, like summertime, people drinking until 12 o'clock at night. That's ridiculous. I'm not going to do that.
So what time do you open right now?
Right now, I open at 11 o'clock,
And you close at what time?
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock.
And that's only because it's just, people choose to go other places for other reasons.
So, right now, no one's drinking, will be drinking outside at 8 o'clock at
No,
night, I
not
would
at all.
imagine.
Are you sure? It's pretty warm out.
Any other questions from the council besides me? Go ahead.
Sorry, Michael, but I have
That's all right.
bunch of questions. But I'm going to predicate this by saying that I firmly believe that part of being business-friendly is that you apply the rules consistently and fairly to everybody. And you don't ask some businesses to adhere with a certain set of rules and another set of businesses to adhere to a whole nother set of rules. And I think that sometimes that's what happens, and that's what makes us be perceived as business unfriendly. So my questions are really based on, in my view, applying the same rules to your application that we've applied to other people. So I have a few questions, and I apologize. So the first thing is, in the past, when we've had an application for a liquor license, we've usually gotten an opinion or a statement from the police chief. And the only thing that's on my list here is there, from the police chief, is there a list of everyone who has completed server training. So could I ask the police chief whether or not you've reviewed this and where we are on this list of server training? I mean, you can answer it too,
I
but,
could I'm the only one to this date. That's because I wanted to at least apply for the license, but I am the only one that has it right now.
So moving forward, if the council were to grant the license, I'd want to obviously keep in touch with the gentleman to make sure that all of his servers, whatever service he designates, has the appropriate training so they can dispense alcohol.
and right now, you can serve beer and wine?
No.
No, you can't serve anything. Okay.
It's BYOB.
BYOB, okay. So, in the past, when we've given liquor licenses to people who are serving food, in many cases, those licenses have been tied to the hours that they're serving food. What's not clear to me right now is, are you planning on having a liquor license that goes with your food service, or are you planning on, like, sir, I'm gonna serve food till 8 o'clock or 8:30, but then I'm gonna stay open and serve drinks till later? Because those are two different things, and we've asked other businesses to specify that. So what exactly?
I want to serve food and I want to serve liquor.
Okay,
That's
but
what I want to do.
But what time do you want to serve the alcohol until?
That I don't know. I got to see what works right now. Right now, it's like I mean, I'm not going to do it past that where it's not legal to do it.
But here's the hard part for us, and we've, every other business that, and Counselor Shabbat shaking her head yes, when somebody comes to us and asks us for a liquor license, it's either tied to the hours that they're serving the food, or they get permission to sort of operate as a bar. Not, you know, the food service is done, and they're gonna keep serving alcohol to a certain amount of time. I mean, we would need to know that in order to, Tony, could you
He's applying for a BV license. That's what a full liquor license is.
You have to
The
have
service of alcohol is incidental to the service of food. So long as the alcohol is being served, there has to be food too, and I think you know that. That's what's going on here. He can't have two different times, you know, the food stops and the alcohol keeps going.
Exactly. So that's part of my question is, what time are you planning on serving the food till? Because that's what time your liquor license will go to. Do you see what I'm saying?
So every place in this town, if they stop serving food at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, then they gotta close up right then?
You have to have food available. I think I'm right.
Okay, well,
It
that
doesn't
wouldn't-
have
that
to
wouldn't be an issue
a
for
full
me at all.
menu, but it has to be
Yeah.
food, like appetizers or whatever.
Yeah, and that wouldn't be an issue for me at all. I'm not trying to, I don't wanna say the wrong word, like, be pigeonholed into something and commit to something where I don't know if it
Right.
makes sense or
But-
not. Yeah.
But when we, in the past, when we grant a liquor license, we know what time that's going to be until. So it's, you know, I mean, in your case, you could be saying, I don't think you would, but, well, I want to serve till 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning. I mean, when we grant a liquor license, we know what time the liquor is going to be served until. And I feel like we need to know that to make a decision.
I think what we normally know is the operating hours.
Well, here's
So
the
if-
thing, he actually,
He does
on the
have-
face of his license, it says hours not to exceed state law rules and regulations. That means the request is for a liquor license that would go till 1 AM, and as Chief Jones knows, that means that if it goes to 1 AM, I think service stops at 12:30?
Correct, sir.
And then everybody has to be out at 1 o'clock.
Correct.
That's what the request is for. It doesn't state it, but when it says hours not to exceed state law rules and regulations, those are the hours that he's talking about.
But at this point, we could say you're open 11 to 8 o'clock, because that's the hours you're open, and you can serve liquor within that time. And then if he wanted to extend his hours, he'd have to come back to us. I'm just asking.
Under 3-5-7, you can place conditions as to the hours of operation
Okay.
by state law.
All right, but your application is to serve to 1 if you decide to extend your hours. Okay. Okay.
So just so I'm clear, so you're, and I'm not against this, I just want to make sure, because we've asked other people this. You'll probably serve like food until dinner, until 8 o'clock, and then
Absolutely.
from like 8 to 1, you would serve like appetizers or some
Correct.
other sort of thing. Okay. So that's one question. I'm not terribly sure, I have to admit, in the advertisement for this, whether or not, and I'll just be honest, and looking at this, my takeaway when I looked at this is that you wanted to be able to enhance your food business and be able to have a full alcohol menu to go with your restaurant business. I wasn't sure until I looked at this that what you're asking for is to operate, in my mind, something that's a little different than a restaurant. It's more like a pub, something that's gonna stay open until 1 o'clock in the morning. So, you know, it's a little bit of a different kettle of fish than a restaurant that has just a liquor license. The second question that I have in all of this, and this has to do with outdoor seating, and I'm happy that the outdoor season is over. But just being honest, the few outdoor licenses that we've granted in the absence of having an outdoor seating ordinance, which we still haven't been able to get through, you know, we've asked people to show us, we've made them have their liquor area enclosed where they're serving, that they've had to have a fence around it, they have to have something that clearly separates it from the neighbors. I mean, we've asked places like Lyrics to do a lot who are also in a residential area in order to have outdoor liquor. And in your particular request, it's really just some tables in the parking lot, and that's probably the least amount of criteria. I mean, we've asked everybody else, because it's liquor, because it's outdoors, and especially if you're gonna say you're gonna be serving it till 1 o'clock in the morning.
Not outside.
What time are you going to serve till outside?
I haven't even thought about that, but I'd be respectful, probably, I'd definitely, at least probably 10 o'clock. I don't see being pretty reasonable, and if it's not, then I can have that discussion and we can talk about it, but I definitely would not want to be serving outside past 11 on a Friday or Saturday.
Well, I'm more comfortable now that I understand, and at least that it's the off-season, the indoor license that you're asking for. I'm really uncomfortable, given the state of flux we're in over the outdoor licensing and the requirements that we've asked of other people for outdoor licensing, which are considerably more, because you just have some picnic tables outdoors, correct?
Teak tables,
Right.
correct.
I mean, they're nice, I'm not saying that they're not, but, you know, they're not.
And obviously, like, I mean, if you guys, whatever the rules are, the rules are. So I don't know. I'm just applying for the license right now. There's not going to be people out there tomorrow or in the next couple months.
Right, and I'm actually a little happy about that, because I'll be honest, I'm uncomfortable about the outdoor thing because we don't have an outdoor ordinance. We've been working on one, and some of the people that have gotten outdoor seating have been asked to do considerably more than this, and we've put considerably more controls on the outdoor seating to make sure that it doesn't interfere with the neighbors, to make sure that it's safe, to make sure that people aren't, you know, leaving the area with nobody watching them and getting in the car with a beer in their hand or whatever else. So I'll be honest, I'm a little uncomfortable with the outdoor part right now, although happily it's not outdoor season, and I truly hope that this council or the next council will get this outdoor thing squared away, so there will be a fair process that everybody, you know, has to comply with the same set of rules.
I mean, I've worked at two very big restaurants in Newport growing up, the Crowley's at Christie's Restaurant and the Karakitis at the Beach Club, and they both ran tight ships, and that's what I plan on doing here. I'm not gonna be doing this willy-nilly, so I wanna do the right thing. That's why I'm applying for this license. I would like to get it approved. And I gotta figure out what you guys want me to do to make you feel comfortable on it.
I think that your point, and I believe you, that you have every intention of running a tight ship, but to go back to how you get to be perceived as business unfriendly, it's making a decision about a liquor license based on you're comfortable that this applicant, right, instead of on a specific set of criteria, you're looking at a person in front of you going, oh, this person's they're gonna do a good job, and we can trust them, and that's okay, and it's fine. And then the next person who comes in front of you, maybe you don't feel the same way, and then that's what gets the town a reputation as being business unfriendly, because instead of having a set of criteria that, you know, okay, this is the criteria, it's sort of, you know, because I think you're a good guy and I think you're straightforward and honest, and, you know, you've done a lot for the community and you want to run a good place. But that's a tough way to run a railroad, because you're making decisions on people's personalities as opposed to, well, you know, we have a set of guidelines that we ask people to meet or not.
Madam President?
Madam President.
Councilor Ryan. Go to the right.
Okay, to me, it's like, all right, he's looking for a full liquor license. We can't hold him to the outdoor seating because we don't have it, and we're not going to have that done tonight. So, to me, that's a moot point. That's for the next council to figure it out and to decide on that, so we can't hold him to any of that stuff because it doesn't exist. But what we can do is, if we keep it like this, the way he asked for it, I don't see... It seems to me that it's in compliance. And I think that, you know, if the next person comes up next week, we would have to do the same thing. So that's just how I see it. We can't hold it to him. We don't even have it. So, unless I'm missing something.
Thank you.
But the town is missing on the alliance, so, an outdoor seating, so I think leave it alone.
Councilor Edwards.
Thank you. We all know where I stand on the outdoor seating thing. I think we've talked about this ad nauseum. You know, under the current set of ordinances we have, under state law, we have the ability to grant him some space. so long as he defines the premise and checks off all the boxes. You know, Mr. Napolitano's been in front of us a ton in the last year. He's obviously in front of us here today because his business is struggling. He needs a competitive advantage, and we need to help him out. And, you know, it's obvious. I've worked in the restaurant business. I worked in the restaurant business for 12 years. I know how difficult it is, right? And so I applaud Mr. Napolitano for, you know, taking a chance on opening a business here in Tiverton, especially when he has such deep roots in Newport. I think that we just need to move on from this. We need to issue him his liquor license so he can get back to business and hopefully, come next summer, still be in business.
Madam President. Anybody else?
No, go ahead.
Mike, don't cut yourself short. Go for the whole thing and use what you need. If you're going to sit up, don't willy-nilly with us. Say, listen, my license is this time to this time, that's it. That's what I'm applying for. If you don't use the whole thing, that's up to you. Don't go up there saying you're going to do this and that because they're going to bite you. I'm telling you, they're going to get you. Don't do it. You want the whole license, what you applied for, end of story. That's what I made my motion for. That's where you have to be. And if you've been here, you haven't never had a problem, then that's where we have to be with this. We can't stop cutting it up. And that's what Trish was saying. So anybody who comes up gets the whole thing. If you screw up, we take it. That's the way it's going to be. My opinion.
Are you all set?
I'm good.
Councilor Perry, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, if Mike's going to be there all night long, he has his kitchen open, so he still could be serving food. So he's covered under the food and alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't see a problem with him having that license at all.
Anyone else? Councilor Shabbat, now I'm going fully around.
Certainly, I don't have an issue with indoor. The problem with the outdoor is there is a house right next door. And there's no screening between the business parking lot and the house. And we've run into this before with businesses in town where the next door neighbor could hear the conversations, they could hear breaking glasses or drop plates. And so, and that's with a small seating area. And we have seen that in the past. And I think we have to be considerate of the neighbor in question because they have to live there. So unless there's some type of screening that cuts down on any type of noise, I can't be for outdoor seating. There has to be some criteria around it so that the neighbor is protected to a certain point. Because otherwise, it's just going to come back in front of us again and again. And we've seen that happen. I don't have a problem with outdoor seating, but I need to be cognizant of the neighbors. And it's very important that they are protected as well.
Well, that's why I asked the question, what the hours are now, because right now, from 11:30 to 8 o'clock, there's conversations and things going on out there, and then if you serve liquor there, I don't see much of a difference, but after 8 o'clock, I'm a little concerned about the after 8 o'clock with outdoor seating, right now
And
anyway.
there's no screening to the neighborhood. That's my number one issue. I can't do it without screening being provided for the neighbor.
But we're limiting Mike from what everybody else we gave a license to.
Well, it's only because, we're really not. It's only because of where he's situated, because we've talked to other restaurants that have neighbors like that.
Right, and we've required screening between the property so that they could operate their business.
So require screening then, but we don't want to give the guy a license that we're not going to give the next guy. Let's make it easy. Here's the license. Your license is from 11 to 1 like everybody else. If you need screening, put screening up. Whatever it takes. We don't want to chop up a license, because that's where we get in trouble. Start chopping stuff up.
But if we say you can do it while you're serving food until 8 o'clock, and then after that, from 8 to 1, we would require some kind of assurance that there's some kind of screening so that the neighbors aren't as disturbed. We could do that, but I don't know what kind of screen. They're very close.
Well, from now until, I would think,
Summer.
next March, he's not going to do any outdoor
No.
serving. So that would give him time to see how he does, and then if he feels it's necessary, then put up screening for outdoor seating for next year. We just want to make it easy for him so he doesn't have to keep coming back. Every
Right, I
time he
agree.
wants to do something, he's got to keep coming back.
So, let me ask you if this would be a reasonable compromise to you. Again, the indoors is not an issue. But outdoors, at some point, whether it's to just say, we're not gonna have anything, or we're gonna have very little, either this council, the next council, between now and next outdoor season, there's going to have to be something. We have to have something. And so, rather than do a one-off tonight, given that it's not outdoor season, and I guess we can't force this on the next council, but maybe we could. And however we resolve this, I personally don't believe anybody who wanted outdoor, who's asked for it, should have to pay another fee to get it. Like, if this town council or the next one can come up with, this is our plan for outdoor seating, we shouldn't charge anybody for a license application for it. We should just do it. You know, would you be okay with getting your indoor liquor license now and letting the town and all the other restaurants too, because you're not the only one, but have issues so that whatever the screening plan is for you is the same as for somebody else? There's one, this is the guideline on screening, this is the guideline on how you're gonna handle noise. This is whether or not the police want your area, whatever it is. That way, everybody gets held to the same set of standards, and we're not doing this, well, we'll do this, and you happen to get it now, but another business in 3 months who wants the same thing has another whole set of criteria because the criteria existed. You're not serving outside now, are you?
No,
I mean,
but
it's
to
not
be honest, though,
it's
up
not
until this
outdoor
point,
season.
I have had no problems there at all. And I feel like I've done everything that I possibly have to do it the right way. I even talked to Roger, like, I'm very open to stuff, but I mean, I would really like to put this behind me and just get the license and move on, and then I have no intention in being a bad neighbor whatsoever, and all you have is my word here, but it's true. I've talked to Roger about this. I mean, I'm sure we can figure something out, but I got everything checked off that I need, and right now, it's getting pushed away again, is what I feel like.
Well, in fairness, you have to know that you were at the outdoor seating ordinance hearing. I mean, you know that this is up in the air in the town. I mean, you do. You know that this is an unresolved issue because you were at the hearing. And I appreciate what you're saying. I think you are a good guy. But, if the council starts issuing things based on whether or not they think one person's a good guy versus somebody isn't.
But it's not just that. It's like I'm complying to all the rules. I'm not doing anything shady. I'm not doing anything.
Madam President, can we move the question?
Yeah, well, I was just.
Second. My motion stands.
Yeah, we don't have to move the question because I don't think anyone else has anything else to say. Is that correct? Okay. So I have a motion and I have a second.
Are we voting on the move or we move?
Well, I don't think there's a reason to move the question, but I was just about ready to call the motion. Is that okay with everyone?
Can you repeat the motion?
Yeah, of course we could repeat the motion. The motion is to approve the license as requested.
Me.
Seconded by Councilor Perry.
Right. Is everybody all right with that now? So I have a motion and a second.
Actually, just to clarify.
Well, then I'm gonna move.
No, will you clarify the motion, the hours of operation, indoor, outdoor? Will you state the whole motion again?
Well,
It's as requested.
As requested, which is state law.
The request is for the state law requirements. So that would be 11 a.m. to 1 a.m. by
Indoor,
state law.
11 a.m. to 1 a.m. indoors and outdoors.
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Good luck, Mike.
Thank you.
All right.
The reason why I skipped a little bit is because I wanted the Cub Scouts to kind of see how we do things, and I didn't want it.
We're really sorry about that, guys.
Kind of subject that was going to cause a lot of problems.
See you, Mo, Larry, and Curly.
Bye, guys. Thank you very much. Good luck. And that's why I did that. I wanted them to see what we do instead of some of the other stuff we do. So I'll just continue with C and then I'll go back, okay? I don't know if they understood.
We only moved C1 up.
Yeah, I mean,
We have to go back to here now, because your motion was only move C1
only
up.
C1. Yeah, but I only.
C2? Yeah, she only said C1.
I just wanted them.
C1 do one, right? C1 do one.
I just wanted you to know that I wasn't confused. I was just trying to let them see.
All right, so now we're
All
back
right.
to the original agenda. Recess.
Hold on.
All right.
Okay.
Open public forum, announcements, comments, questions, and presentations. Susan Gill, PB appointment. Planning board, I would imagine that's what PB.
No, it's peanut butter appointment.
Yep, Susan Gill, Planning Board. I'd like to thank President DiMaderos for the opportunity to speak tonight at this council's final meeting.
Senator Feeley, come on.
All right, could we just have a little quiet, please? Thank you.
I have been approached a number of times over the last year on the outcome of the APRA request I had filed with the town and the Attorney General's office. I thought it was prudent to wait until the case had been decided before I commented. Since it did last month, I think I am now ready to respond to the allegations made by Councilor LeBeau and the lengthy process that was involved to reach that decision. In late December,
Randy was just questioning why, because it's on the public
She
forum.
signed up and it's not on the agenda.
Oh, so that's
Okay,
right.
go
I have
ahead.
no background.
I sat before this council in July of 2017 anticipating my reappointment to the planning board. During the interview process, Councilor LeBeau chose to make a number of obstreperous and slanderous comments while holding up a piece of paper claiming it contained a laundry list of things that can't be done, and inferred that I, as well as the planning board, had cost businesses money and made people do things that they are not supposed to do, among other disparaging remarks. After considering my options, I filed a request under the Access to Public Records Act with the town clerk seeking the document Mr. LeBeau referenced. Mr. LeBeau failed to provide any document despite a number of attempts by the town solicitor requesting that he do so. Since I was unable to respond to his allegations, without it, the next step in the process was to file my complaint with the Attorney General's office. The town solicitor, as the legal representative of the town council, was contacted by the Attorney General's office in mid-August requesting a written response. August 24th, Attorney DeSisto submitted a 5-page response to the Attorney General on behalf of the town council, submitting that the APRA request be dismissed. In late December, I received a favorable response from the Attorney General's office that they had determined the paper he exhibited at the meeting was a public document and therefore under the APRA was required to provide me with the laundry list. The decision noted that the town council, as a body, had not committed a knowing and willful or reckless violation and had acted reasonably in its efforts to obtain a copy of the document. However, Mr. LeBeau repeatedly ignored or refused the solicitor's request to produce the list and was now being held accountable by the Attorney General's office in his capacity as an individual member of the town council. In early January 2018, I received an email response from Attorney DeSisto on behalf of Mr. LeBeau, which contained a photograph of one side of a piece of paper displaying a list of 8 statements implying it was the laundry list. I had anticipated receiving the original document, but at the very least expected to have the ability to view the backside of the document as well for any additional comments I may need to address. I therefore contacted the Attorney General's office on January 16th, 2018 with my concern and request. In March, I received a follow-up response from the Attorney General's office that again found in my favor and informed Mr. LeBeau that he would need to provide, at the very least, a photo of both sides of the document and a signed affidavit that it was a true and accurate copy of the photographed document previously emailed to me in January. He again failed to respond. On March 27th, Attorney General Peter Kilmartin filed a complaint in Superior Court against the Tiverton Town Council and Randy LeBeau in his official capacity as a town council member and in his individual capacity, alleging knowing and willful and reckless violations of the APRA. In early June, Mr. LeBeau was deposed by the Attorney General's office and attested to the following. The paper he held up and referenced at the July 2017 Town Council meeting contained no information relating to the planning board or any member or information relating to any alleged infractions by the planning board or any member. He had not retained the document he referenced in July 2017 and had no recollection what was actually written on that paper, admitting that his laundry list simply did not exist at that time. The photograph of the paper he submitted via email to Attorney DeSisto that I received in January was a newly created document that he had implied was the original laundry list. He stated he had discarded that document also. On September 18th, the Attorney General's lawsuit and action against the Town Council and Mr. LeBeau were both dismissed. No action was taken against the Town Council, and following Mr. LeBeau's full admission at the deposition that the July list was a figment of his overactive imagination and the document he submitted in December was not the original, the case was dismissed. No real laundry list existed, and therefore there was no public record to request. It took 14 months for this outcome to be determined, and now reflecting on it, I have several comments to make. I pursued this APRA request because I felt that the integrity of the planning board was under fire by his implausible and careless remarks, and that I had been wrongly accused and personally attacked without merit. I have retained a copy of the list that I received in January, which he represented until June of this year as the reasons I should not be reappointed to the planning board. It has no merit, and not surprising to me, all of the items he listed pertain to his personal business, Sakonnet River Outfitters. He has been very vocal and convinced that somehow I was at fault for his subdivision regulation and zoning ordinance violations. The file simply does not support his claims. The items he enumerated were either issues discussed with him and he agreed to, or are inconsequential comments that have no standing. I will submit a copy of the list for the public record. It is most unfortunate that he persuaded members of this council, using the bully pulpit to spew allegations that had no basis in fact, and while knowing he did not have a list, still tried to browbeat his fellow councilors to vote against my reappointment. Contrary to what some individuals may attempt to promote, this APRA complaint cannot be labeled frivolous. The Attorney General's office would not have ruled it as an APRA violation and included it in their annual statewide Access to Public Records Act and Open Meetings Act forum brochure as a precedent for any future complaints that may be filed. I only learned after filing my APRA request with the Attorney General against Mr. LeBeau that one could only be filed against a public body such as the Town Council, not an individual member. It was never my intention to file a claim against the entire Town Council, and it was the Attorney General's office that later made the distinction when Mr. LeBeau repeatedly failed to comply with their requests. Unfortunately for the town, $4,075 in litigation expenses have been realized from this lengthy process. The time and energy that the town solicitor was required to allocate on attempts to obtain the document from Mr. LeBeau, compose written responses on behalf of the Town Council, could have all been avoided if Mr. LeBeau had provided the document when initially requested at any point along the way or admitted that it never existed. Mr. LeBeau miscalculated that I would remain silent and passive to his wild accusations and would not seek a response from an objective third party, and then present it to the public to provide governmental transparency. In conclusion, I would like to mention that there are at least 20 active volunteer boards and commissions in town with at least 100 individual members that are well-meaning and willing and able to contribute their time and talents. They are indispensable for the number of diverse supporting services needed by this town and should be treated fairly. You will be speaking with some of them later this evening. If any council allows these individuals to be publicly denigrated, it may well be the residents of this town that will bear the consequences in the short and long term if they cease to participate. Thank you.
Madam President.
We're not supposed to respond to...
I can't respond?
We're not supposed to respond to open forum. We're just supposed to... Is that correct, Tony?
Yo, Tony, I can't respond? Okay. Well, I stand on everything I did.
Save it for the announcements.
Okay, Kelly Levesque, Tiverton Prevention Coalition updates.
Hi, I'm Kelly Levesque, 217 Crandall Road. We have 3 events coming up for the Tiverton Prevention Coalition. This coming Saturday, the 27th, in conjunction with the Tiverton Police Department, is National Drug Take Back Day. We will be stationed at the police station from 12 to 2, Sally Black and I, in our Red Sox paraphernalia, obviously. We will accept all pill form of medication, prescription or non-prescription. We ask that they remove it from the plastic pill bottle and just dump all the pills into like a Ziploc bag or some kind of bag that they could twist tie, and they can recycle the actual bottles with their name and personal information at home. Just give us the baggie full of pills. We don't accept liquids, and we also don't accept sharps, needles, like diabetic needles. That's this Saturday, the 27th, 10 to 2. On Monday, the 5th of November, we are having a Tiverton Prevention Coalition meeting. It's a nighttime meeting, the first meeting we've ever had at night. It is open to all. It is being held at the Tiverton Library. And then on Wednesday, November 7th, also at the Tiverton Library from 6:30 to 9:30 p.m. is our grandparent support group, free and open to anyone in town or actually out of town. We have members that come from Fall River or Portsmouth or on the island, for anyone who is raising a grandchild and wants to meet a supportive group and actually get help and information if they have issues.
So, yes, Sally
Sally
Black.
already has her outfit on for Saturday.
Tiverton Prevention. So, Tiverton won last time when we did this. We collected the most. It was amazing, the people that came, and a lot of people that had passed away, and the people didn't know what to do with their things. But we do request that a police officer be there at every second. They can't even go to the men or ladies' room because we're not being responsible for this stuff. I didn't want someone to say they gave 10 pills and we gave back 5.
Patrick's
so the police officer
shaking his
has to
head.
be there. Okay?
Okay.
All right, got it?
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Cal. Public hearing, advertised public hearing, proposed amendment to Town Code of Ordinances, Chapter 54, Section 54-1 through 54-35, recreation, open space, and other town areas and buildings open to the public, continued from September 24th meeting. Gary Plunkett, co-chair, Open Space and Land Preservation Commission, memorandum and update, amendments to proposed ordinance. Welcome, Gary.
Good evening, members of the council. You received a memo and the revisions that we agreed upon at the last session of the public hearing, and I think the revisions respond to those adequately. So unless you see a reason to go over those or you have questions, I think we're ready to move.
Any questions?
Yes, number 6, he still has no firearm. We discussed that.
It's actually number 8.
That's not the one I handed me.
I feel like I'm missing a page.
Yeah, I feel like I'm missing a page.
Something's missing over here, too, then.
No, we're literally missing a page.
Yeah. Right, and I have B1.
B1, which was the original.
B1 is just this.
Yeah, but it goes from number 1 to number 9 on B1.
I don't even have them.
Yeah.
54, 31.
Number 9.
You should be looking at this.
Oh, it's right behind us. It's the next one.
Yes.
You hit it, Nancy.
I don't have it.
It's right, it's after B1A. It's literally sitting right there.
Well, what I would like to tell you is I don't have it. That is the absolute truth.
That's because Jeannie didn't.
I don't have this at all, Nancy.
Okay.
Okay.
You don't have this?
No, some of
Right
us.
here.
I don't know. I really don't look.
Yeah, it's not numbered.
I don't.
You should have 4 pages of the revised ordinance, and all the changes are in red.
I really don't have it, but that's.
If you look at page 3, section 5431, item 8, firearms are not permitted except by special permit.
Right, exactly, but
So which means?
but the hunting areas, a rifle and, a shotgun in this is a firearm, and a lot of these places allow hunting.
Not
Huh?
in the open space areas.
Look at number 1. You see?
They're eliminating hunting with anything but a bow, and just in that area.
Right, yeah, but those areas, but Chappaqua is one of these areas that they're talking about. It's a state area, but we don't want to be confused here. Why do you got to keep, I'm not going to vote for it anyway, I'm good.
Well, what
I'm all
is your
set.
question, Randy? Would
No,
you
I'm
like to
good.
share it with us?
Nah, I'm good to go. I don't like the idea that he's taking the Second Amendment away from people. I just don't like it.
It doesn't.
Really, Tony?
No.
Well, I believe he is. You can say no all you want.
You-
My
you-
vote's no, so you guys just move right on with this thing. I'm good to go.
That's okay, and I understand, but by way of explanation, basically, the rules and regulations for hunters that are in place anyway are being reconfirmed here. And I think 8 dovetails with that, too. So anybody who can hunt anyway under RIDEM can do the same thing. It's not just bow hunting, by the way. It's regular hunting, and bow hunting of deer is permitted in the Pecasset Ridge Conservation Area, but that's also regulated by the Department of Environmental Management.
So you're saying if it's okay to hunt in that area, it's okay to have a shotgun or whatever gun is used?
There is no hunting in town open space areas with guns. The areas that you're talking about are state wildlife management areas. That's not part of this ordinance.
Madam President?
Oh, Joan. So that we don't lose track of this, so number 8, where it says firearms are not permitted except by special permit. What special permit?
Same as 1, that's by DEM. So if you have a DEM permit to carry a firearm in this area under 1, that's where 8 comes in too.
Right, but you don't get a carry permit from DEM.
Yeah, that you jumped on my question.
I guess you could just put RIDEM in there.
That's not what she's saying.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Joan, ask the question again.
So firearms, especially concealed carry permit, is not issued by RIDEM.
That's correct, yes.
So it's not covered by this.
And I don't think the intent of number 8 is for concealed carry, is it, or is it not?
That's what it was in the original argument.
It's a special permit. All I did is categorize it as a special permit. And the only thing that is involved here is open space areas. And there's normally, basically firearms are not permitted there. If you have a concealed carry
But if you have a permit to
that's a
carry,
special permit.
then that's a special permit.
Or if you have a special permit from DEM for some kind of animal control or something, that's a special permit.
Okay,
I didn't try to specify all the special permits that might apply.
May I suggest just a slight compromise, a slight change to the wording? Firearms are not permitted except by those allowed to do so by permit.
Sure. That's fine.
Is that better, Joan? She's looking at you, Tony, like it's not.
Well, it's concealed carry permit.
Why even have it?
Right, but, so when I was looking at this, I'm like, if somebody who doesn't know, and they look at this, say firearms are not permitted except by special permit, they would say, okay, where do I get a special permit?
That's correct, yes.
So now your change would be,
Those are allowed.
repeat your change.
Except by those allowed to do so by permit. So that would be any permit, a concealed carry or other permit, RIDEM.
Hunting or,
Madam President?
wait a minute. I don't know if
so.
Joan's done.
Except by those allowed to do so by permit.
Yes.
Okay, so you're not being specific as to
That's
what type
correct,
of
yes.
permit?
That's correct.
Okay.
That encompasses more than just a concealed carry permit.
It does.
Okay, I'm okay with that.
can I ask a question
Councilor
along,
Edwards.
along that vein? In the interest of keeping this simple, if we're going to allow anybody who has a legal right to carry a firearm, be it concealed or open carry, whatever comes about, why are we even putting this in here, right? If I don't have a permit to conceal carry a gun, and I walk into the woods and start brandishing a firearm, I'm breaking the law. I'm breaking the law if I'm doing it in a neighborhood, and the police are going to come and get me. So what is the point of even having something in here if all you're saying is that if you don't have a license to carry a firearm, then you can't bring a gun here? Well, if you don't have a license to carry a firearm, you shouldn't be bringing a gun anywhere. In fact, you probably shouldn't have one. So what is the point of even having number 8 there?
The purpose of 8 is not to allow someone with a permit to go in there. It's to specify that if you don't have the permit and you have a firearm, you're in violation of the ordinance and the police can make the necessary arrest. That's what the purpose
But when they
is.
arrest you anyway,
When they arrest you anyways?
if you
Yeah.
have a gun.
Isn't it the law? I mean, Chief,
Well-
if I want to ask the chief because he's the law enforcement guy here. If I'm not supposed to have a gun and I walk down Highland Road here and you see me carrying a gun, am I getting arrested?
I think with the conservation land, if it's quasi-private property or there's hunting allowed, if you owned land that you allowed me to hunt on, I wouldn't need a concealed carry permit to transport the weapon to your land and hunt and walk around and target shoot. So I think that's where the ordinance comes into play. And that's what we deal with. If someone has acres, which they do, of land that they allow hunters on, I wouldn't need a concealed carry permit.
So you feel that this needs to be put in?
Then if we're going to protect, so obviously anyone with a concealed carry permit can come onto the property. But with this language, it prevents someone from coming onto the property and hunting or walking around with a firearm saying that I have landowner permission to do so. You follow?
Yeah, well, but the Conservation Commission would have to grant approval for you to do so, and they haven't.
Correct.
Then again,
But then that would put your officer in a little bit of a bind at 2 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. If I'm walking around with a firearm, if there's a specific ordinance that the officer can direct himself or herself to, then it's a violation of the town ordinance.
would you be able to, so because it is owned by the Conservation Commission, the town, hypothetically speaking, somebody like if Denise said, hey, that guy over there, you can go hunt on this land, that could be perceived as her giving permission from the town for this gentleman to go.
Well, the ordinance would prohibit
The ordinance would prohibit that.
Not
Okay.
that I would ever give permission to do that, by the way.
I'm using anecdotal examples where I'm picking on you, sorry.
I think it's worth leaving in here because we have a lot of land in town that does allow hunting. So they need to know, a guy comes to Tiverton, the 8-rod farm allows hunting. So this just sort of delineates that this is an 8-rod farm. This is town conservation open space areas. So I think it needs to be in the ordinance. That's the way it was in the old ordinance, but we didn't have the exceptions. Randy asked for the exceptions, so we put the exceptions in there just to make it clear if you have a permit, a special permit or a concealed carry.
But now along those lines, like if we have in number 1, no hunting or trapping is allowed except by special permit from RIDEM, doesn't that kind of cover us? Like if you can't be on there hunting without the Rhode Island DEM permit.
Yeah, but like Joan said, there's a concealed weapon permit also, so number 8 covers that,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
Okay.
I just feel like we're being redundant, but
Well, no,
maybe I'm not making myself clear.
one is for hunting,
Mm-hmm.
which normally would be with a shotgun, whereas number 8, I consider more for pistols and revolvers, which is what your concealed carry is for your handguns, not, firearms is more general. It could include, shotguns, rifles, and handguns. But a concealed carry permit is specifically for handguns.
I understand that. I guess my question then is to the chief is if the only way you can hunt this land is with a permit from RIDEM, then why are we even talking about number 8?
Because
if we're gonna allow every other special use
Because of the
permit
concealed weapon.
for a concealed carry.
Mr. LeBeau asked for it, that's why it's in there.
Right.
I think what Randy was talking about was like if you want to walk through Fort Barton Woods and you got a permit to carry, you got a pistol on you, you can be arrested now for carrying a.
I
So
understand.
what he's
If
saying
that's
is
in
that
there, I
should.
understand that.
Right, and so.
why not just
what he-
strike it?
No.
If
that's not in
Because
there,
that's not in here.
you
That's what he
wouldn't-
wants in here.
Yeah,
If
if
you
that
have a
wasn't in-
permit, you don't have to worry if you walk through Fort Barton
Right.
Woods with a pistol. If
That's
you
what I
got a
was
permit,
concerned
that's what
Right,
Randy was
right, and-
concerned
and
about.
They fixed it for you, Andy.
Right.
Okay.
So this is to cover concealed
Yeah, I get that.
carry
Yeah, walking
permit
through
holders.
Weedamo Woods with a pistol.
I just feel like saying, hey, I was just going to say, it seems to me that if you're going to say originally firearms are not permitted except by a special permit or any permit that would allow you to have it, why even bother saying that? Because the police aren't going to go arrest you if you have a permit, and it's not in the ordinance.
John, the way it
I
originally
get it.
was,
I get
no
it.
firearms were allowed.
Yeah, I understand that, and that was foolish,
So
yes.
this is a compromise and to take care of concealed carry permit holders because they would normally just be carrying it
Yeah,
and.
and it says you can't.
Mhm.
So
Right.
they,
I
somebody
understand
would
that.
call and then the police
All
would
right,
come.
so before I open it up to the public, I just want to read the dog part because I know there was a lot of interest, and I'm going to read out loud number 4 because there has been some changes, and last time we discussed this, there was a lot of public participation. So number 4 reads, dogs are not permitted in the Pecasset Ridge Conservation Area. Dogs are permitted at Fogland Beach Conservation Area only in off-beach session. Columbus Day to Columbus Day to April 30th, but must be restrained to prevent damage to the fragile dune system. Dogs are allowed on marked trails of all of the town open space areas, but must be under positive control. Positive control means the dog is either on a physical leash or under voice command and within sight. If not leashed, a leash must be carried by the person controlling the dog to be used when encountering other hikers and dogs. So that is the change to that. At this point, I'd like to open it up to the public for any comments.
Everybody knows William McLaughlin, Fish Road. The firearms thing, it still sounds like it leaves it confused. A hunting license is basically a permit to carry a firearm during that activity. Concealed carry allows you to carry it all the time. I would probably put it, no hunting, trapping, etc., no possession of firearms other than for lawful purpose, which would cover, if they sent somebody in there with a DM permit, it would cover somebody with concealed carry. It's a lawful purpose, your self-protection. It kind of clears it up, because it just doesn't sound clear how you're... Does that make sense to your solicitor?
I'll ask him, but is that it, Bill?
Yep.
Okay. We'll ask you that in a minute. Any other comments from the audience before I close the public hearing? Any other comments from the audience? No? Okay, I'm going to close the public session. Tony, would you like to comment on Mr. McLaughlin's?
They're close, but I think the language that was proposed would be easier for the police department in the event that they have to get involved.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from the council? I'd like to entertain a motion.
Sorry. that was
That's okay.
Spacing out. Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to amend the Town Code of Ordinances, Chapter 54, Sections 54-1 through 54-35, Recreation, Open Space, and other town areas and buildings to, and that's it.
Second.
As amended.
As amended, as amended.
As amended, and also to delete.
To delete by special
Special
permit
permit,
and put those
except by
allowed to
special-
do so by permit.
Correct.
That's covered in the amendment. Yep.
Actually, that wasn't what I was referring
Oh,
to.
I'm sorry, what else?
Deletes redundant section 50-1 of the town code.
I'm sorry, John, what was that?
Deletes redundant section 50-1 of the town code, because part of this was they were eliminating one section, 50-1, that was on the bathing,
Yes.
suit and nude bathing.
Thank you,
Oh,
Joan.
that's right.
So that eliminates that, plus this new revised document with the amendment as,
I will accept Joan's amendment to my motion.
I So I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Do we have a second on the amended?
No, I accept your amendment, so.
He's just incorporating it.
Done.
Is
Bring
that
it
right?
on, love it.
But who seconded it?
Nobody or Joe seconded it.
No.
And you accept the amendment?
Yes.
Very good. Thank you.
Accept the
Yeah,
amendment.
Joe was saying they're going. Okay, so I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thanks, Gary.
Thank you very much.
Did you vote? Yeah. Proposed amendment to Town Code of Ordinance Appendix A zoning Article 2, Section 32, 130 definitions, building lot coverage.
As you know, Nancy has asked us to start going through the code and trying to do some cleanups. This is one of them that we had actually gotten to back before the summertime. That's getting before you now. There are 3 definitions in the zoning ordinance that are similar: building coverage, lot building coverage, and lot coverage. They're used interchangeably throughout the zoning ordinance. Now, at some point, you're going to have to overhaul the entire zoning ordinance. But that's a big job. This issue is creating ambiguities and some difficulties for your zoning board. So we thought that the best approach to take would be, rather than changing all of these definitions into one, is to change the outlier, which is section 32-130C 58A lot coverage, to conform to the same definitions for building coverage and lot building coverage. That will eliminate the ambiguity for the time being. It will make it so all 3 of those definitions, all 3 of those phrases as they're used in the zoning ordinance, have the same definition, make the zoning board's job a bit easier.
Any questions from the council? I'd like to.
Go ahead. Because it's not here with this, does this doesn't change the definition of impervious cover in the watershed section, does it? Where the
It
lot,
does.
where there is a limit to the lot coverage in terms of impervious cover?
It does not.
Okay.
This just goes to the base definitions, but it does not change that definition. And by the way, this is just a stopgap for that time that you finally get the zoning ordinance in front of you in a comprehensive look.
So the only other comment I would make about this is that in a little bit, we're going to talk about the solar ordinance. And in a number of the model solar ordinances that are out there, there is something called lot coverage. So I realize this is a stopgap, but the question is do we do this stopgap now? Or do we do it as part of, if we decide to amend or do something with the solar ordinance, do we do it as part of that?
There's no pressing need to pass this now. If the council's more comfortable waiting, that's fine.
Any further questions from the council? I'd like to open up the public hearing. Anyone from the public like to comment on this? Anyone from the public? One last time, anyone from the public? I'll close the public hearing. Any further discussion from the council?
Madam President,
Council Edwards?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the amendment to the Town Code of Ordinances Appendix A zoning Article 2, Section 32-130.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Okay, now I'm going to go back to C, unadvertised, sitting as a Board of Licenses, Town Council sitting as a Board of Licensing, unadvertised Sean M. Kelly, 97 Bucks Way, request approval for 17th annual free yard haunted maze, walk-through displays of Halloween. Is Mr. Kelly here? Mr. Kelly, is this what you used to have on Stafford Road?
Yes,
Okay.
and actually, I made a typo, it's actually the 18th year this year.
Oh, okay. So this is exactly what you've done for years down in
Exactly,
Stafford
yeah.
Road. Now, at that time we needed police coverage there, is that correct?
Correct.
Are you still requesting that this time?
I have reached out, I've spoken to the police chief's secretary. I haven't heard back, but I know that somebody with the town clerk's office was gonna reach out to them. I don't know what happened there.
Patrick, do you have I assume this was because it was on Stafford Road and with all the traffic and there was people crossing the road and I live right there, so I know it was very, very
His
busy.
secretary wasn't certain it would be necessary, but she wasn't the one to say that.
It's Bucks Way, correct, sir?
Bucks Way, yeah, it's in a
I'll have
neighborhood.
somebody go down and take a look at it, but at this time, given that it's off the street, I don't
And
think
it's
it'd be
a-
necessary.
And it's a
It's cul-de-sac.
circular neighborhood
Right.
too, so it won't be any through traffic, right?
We'll work with Mr.
Hopefully
Kelly.
safer.
I'm sure.
So, yeah.
We've always worked very well with Mr. Kelly. We'll continue to work with him, but
So
at this
we'll-
time, I'm not recommending a police detail.
Okay. Whatever the chief recommends, we'll certainly do. Okay.
Madam President, with that said, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I've had a lot of people asking about it, so it's.
I didn't even
a lot of
realize you
excitement.
moved.
You should put a
We're-
sign
We're
on-
actually in the process of.
Should put a
moving.
sign on Stafford Road,
There
move
is.
to
There's a
90.
very
Yeah,
large
okay.
sign
All
up
right.
that says
I
we've
feel
moved.
bad for
so.
whoever buys our house, because in like 3 or 4 years, people are gonna be pulling up for Halloween.
Where is it?
Send them to my mother-in-law's.
Yeah.
So any other questions from the council? I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Okay.
To the fun part.
Appointments and regulations.
Resignations.
Resignations.
Right.
Well, wait a minute, I have to. Candidate to fill the vacant Republican position for Tiverton Board of Canvassers, 6-year term to expire 10/15/2024. Tiverton Republican Town Committee candidates are as follows: Thor Aker, 51 Leonard Road; Robert Coulter, 34 Lawton Avenue; Nancy Drake, 61 Peaceful Way; Deetta Moran, 339 Village Road; Laura Ram, 27 Cornell Road. At this time, I'd like to make a motion for Deetta Moran to be
How many are
appointed.
we appointing?
One.
Okay. I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Madam President?
Yes.
I just want to add, because I know they're probably going to be watching at home. This last year, we've seen members of the Tiverton Taxpayers Association come at this town, specifically this board, with numerous lawsuits, which, by the way, they were unsuccessful in. So I got to tell you, I'm a little discouraged that they then came forward to seek nomination to the very board, which they have come at with several lawsuits themselves. So I'm glad that you nominated Deetta Moran. I think she's abundantly qualified to do the job, and more importantly, is not a member of the TTA. I think in order to be a member of the TTA, you've got to have something seriously wrong with you. So.
Well, I would just like to say something. Out of these candidates, 3 are running for office, and they will be determining the election
Actually, all
when it
4.
happens.
All
No,
4, yes.
Laura's not running for anything.
Thor Aker is running for Budget Committee.
Laura's not running for anything.
Oh, yes, she is.
Oh. No, she's not.
She withdrew?
All right, all I want to say is I think it's a conflict
So
of
we would've had
interest,
to.
because after the election, they
Okay.
have to certify
Right.
the votes, and so I really do think that the 3 of them, it is a conflict of interest, and that's why I ran into a problem with the 3 of those. Deetta was the 4th. I think she's more than well qualified. She's done it for so many years, and I want to thank her for her service, and she has done very well under pressure, so that is why I nominated Deetta. So with that said, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Unanimous.
Madam President, I just want to add that it is a difficult board to be on with a lot of work, especially during these election times. Deetta is at all the meetings, she's at all the work to be done, so she is an asset to that board.
She deserves a raise.
I don't even know why she would want to be back on it, but thank you, Deetta. Tiverton Harbor and Coastal Water Management Commission, 2-year term to expire 7/15/2020. Peter W. Core, 500 Eagleville Road. This is a reappointment. Any discussion from the council?
Madam President?
Yes.
Is Mr. Core here?
No.
I just wondered if Mr. Core, I think he just recently sold his residential house on Main Road.
Yeah,
So-
1148.
He's on 500 Eagleville now.
That's a
Right,
business.
but that's a
That's his
business.
business.
He does live in Tiverton still.
Okay, so I guess even whether it's a temporary or not, it would be good to have, only because if we're trying to do this, play fair, we had an issue a couple of years ago, so if he could just say whatever his, I'm sorry, what?
I said if you reach out to him, he'll give you his new address.
Yeah, if you don't mind. And that was the only question I had.
Just to be consistent, because we did have an issue with an applicant who had a business address in the past, even though Mr. Core might have another forwarding address in Tiverton, I would suggest that we appoint him based on as part of the appointment, his 1148 Main Road address. I'm sure there's a forwarding from that, so that we're not putting a business address in as part of the appointment, and we end up in the same pickle that we were in
A few years ago.
several years ago. So if everybody's okay with it, I'd make a motion to appoint Peter W. Core of 1148 Main Road, Tiverton, what is the date on this? How many years thing on this?
2-year term.
2 years, 7/15/2020.
A 2-year appointment to the Harbor and Harbor and Coastal Waters Commission. I think it's its technical title.
Second.
And then ask Mr. Core to please provide us with his new residence address as soon as possible.
Yeah, okay. Because I was going to say, why not just get the address? But then we can do this tonight.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Yep, okay, fine.
So motion's been made and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Historical Preservation Advisory Board, 3-year term to expire 10/15/2021. Susan Anderson, 1137 Main Road, requests reappointment. I'd entertain a motion.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to appoint Susan Anderson, 1137 Main Road, to the Historical Preservation Advisory Board for a 3-year term to expire 10/15/2021.
Second.
Motion's been made in second. All those in favor? Unanimous. Juvenile Hearing Board, 3-year term to expire 10/15/2021. 2 alternate vacancies. Patrick Myers, 211 Justin Street, a reappointment.
Madam President,
Counselor Edwards?
motion to approve, or to appoint Patrick Myers, 211 Judson Street, to the Juvenile Hearing Board, 3-year term to expire 10/15/2021.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Library Board of Trustees, 3-year term to expire 10/15/2021. I'll go one at a time. Kathy Cleese Clarendon, 171 Preservation Way, requests reappointment. I'd like to entertain a motion.
Madam President, I'll make a motion to reappoint Kathy Cleese Clarendon to a 3-year term to the Library Board of Trustees to expire 10/15/2021.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Just one question. We're appointing to one slot, correct, or all 3 up for reappointment?
All 3.
All 3 are, so I'm going to do one
Gotcha.
at a time, so
Okay.
that if there's any questions.
All right, because it doesn't, yeah, it just,
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Pamela A. Polly, 1902 Crandall Road, requests reappointment.
Madam President?
Yes.
Motion to approve Pamela A. Polly, 1902 Crandall Road, to the Library Board of Trustees, 3-year term to expire 10/15/2021.
Second.
Motion's been made in second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous.
Madam President, I'd like a motion to reappoint Carol Herman, 1106 Main Road, to a 3-year term to expire 10/15/2021 to the Library Board of Trustees.
Second.
Motion been made in second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Congratulations
Not
to
done
all
yet.
of you. I have one more. Tiverton Housing Authority, 5-year term to expire 10/15/2023. Christopher Nearpass, 110 Stoneleigh Stony Hollow Road, requests reappointment.
Madam President?
Yes.
Motion to appoint Christopher Nearpass, 110 Stony Hollow Road, to the Tiverton Housing Authority for a 5-year term to expire 10/15/2023.
Second?
Motion's been made in second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Resignation. Personnel Board, resignation of Janet Hughes. I'd like to entertain a motion to accept Janet Hughes' resignation with regret and thank her for her service.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Motion's been made in second. All those in favor? Unanimous.
Now we're cruising.
Unfinished business, Planner William
Go
Compton.
ahead and lock up.
Unfinished business, Planner William Compton, approval of updates to comprehensive community plan. Hi.
Hi, good evening. We provided with, excuse me, in your packet, a overview of the comments received from statewide planning and then also amended pages to the plan. I don't know how much time you've had to go through them, so I can go through everything in detail if you like, or if you're comfortable or have specific questions, we can do that as well. Just what's your pleasure?
I think I'll start off to see if the council has any questions.
A lot of red lines.
I have one.
Councilor Hilton?
I have one question, and that's about the solar language, which I know that you needed to put in here because we were passing a solar ordinance. I don't know whether or not the updated solar language in this now is the correct solar language or not.
Councilor Hilton, we did not add, excuse me, any language regarding renewable energy or the solar ordinance. Our response to that is in narrative form, which is that the town is in the process of reviewing and amending the solar ordinance in response to recent activity for development of large-scale solar systems. The town will update the plan at an appropriate time once these amendments have been fully researched and formulated. So, in other words, because of the ongoing potential for amendments to the solar ordinance, it did not make sense to include that in this plan at this time because it could change at some time in the near or not so near future.
Okay. Any other questions that the council had when they were reviewing this?
Madam President?
Councilor Edwards?
Yeah, I have one as it relates to Public Works and Solid Waste Management. It seems like the state really wants us to send our trash to Rhode Island Resource Recovery, but as best I can tell, that's not our single and sole option, and the town may be able to find an alternative. Potentially, I just am concerned that we may be handcuffing ourselves to sending everything to Rhode Island Resource Recovery when we don't know what's going to happen in 3 or 4 years.
If I may. I think for that very reason, we follow with some language that said that the town essentially reserves the right to look for the most effective and cost-effective ways to manage its solid waste. And that also includes, continuing to pursue ways to further reduce the waste stream that is being generated. But there are, in fact, other options that we want to keep open. We don't necessarily want to explicitly name them at this point, but I think that language covers your concern.
Yeah, I don't know, I'd be happier if we weren't specifically naming Rhode Island Resource Recovery. That's just me personally.
And with that, it did seem that statewide planning was pretty adamant about this. This is our effort to educate them.
Anyone else?
Where does it say that? Because
It says it in a couple different places under that section.
It's on page 20. Well, it's like, it's
Page-
after the table of contents on 22, right? It says the town is contracted with Rhode Island as an alternative.
Oh, you're looking at a different side. I was looking at 7.1. Oh.
No, but if you look at, it starts
there
out
we
with Stafford, there's a Stafford Pond picture, and it says solid waste management. It's really on the same page as in the back of the table of contents.
But it's very positive in 7.10 on page 106.
Yeah, it's
where
it's
it
in
says
different places.
It will be sent to.
That's what I mean,
Resource
yeah.
Recovery. So that's where I
Oh, I see.
this is
Yeah.
more of a, this is a positive statement, will be.
Instead of,
Not maybe, it will be,
Well,
is a positive declaration that you're going to send it to Resource
well,
Recovery.
right over here, it says that the town is already contracted with them also, and
Which-
that's in here too, which is
Which
very.
we have not.
Well, hold on a second, please, if I may.
Go ahead.
You have contracted.
For
with-
recycling.
Correct.
Yeah.
But
Right.
actually, under state law, you're also required, to bring it there unless you can show that you have other acceptable options. So there is, and one thing is basically to get us, over the hill here, because it's been a while that this plan has been in progress. I think this leaves us plenty of room to pursue, the best solid waste management options for the town. But as long as we generate the waste and we don't have another option, and the landfill closes, we don't really have that option now, so.
I mean, this also assumes that, we're going to abide by the closure,
It what?
This also assumes that we're going to continue to abide by the closure plan that we have in place. I mean, future councils may elect to tell the state to stick it, and we're going to just continue to fill the landfill to capacity.
Well, if you would like to put that in this letter,
but we
then
can't
maybe
put it
you
in.
should.
I'm just saying, it's an option. It's just,
Yeah.
Madam
But right
President?
now we have to- yes, go
But it says on page 112, the town will still identify and adopt the most convenient and cost-effective method. So I think
Yes.
we're covered.
See over here?
I do, I see that. I understand that. I just want to, again, my concern is that the state is saying, you're going to do X.
I gotcha.
Yeah, and we haven't fully identified what the plan is after the closure.
Okay.
Actually, Madam President, one other thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just thought, I looked at, I did look at everything, and I thought it was very well done. I don't know who did it, but I think that I thought the additions and the corrections and the revisions, I thought they were very good.
Thank you very much.
Madam President, I have one more question for Mr. Compton. This is the state's edits, right? This comes from the state's feedback. So really, I mean, in order for us to move forward with our comprehensive community plan, have the state go thumbs up, you guys are good, we have to accept these, correct?
That's correct, Counselor.
So, all right, so the state pretty much has us right where, like we're going to do this or it's not going to get approved.
The state provided comments and suggestions relating to requirements of the act, which are the ones in the beginning. And then they also had comments and suggestions not relating to requirements for the act. These were the things that, for instance, the discussion clarifying the transportation improvement program, adding some information about recreation needs, which will assist the town in getting grant funding for recreation facilities, which was a point of discussion earlier this evening. Clarifying language about enterprise zones, something that was in the plan that actually no longer exists.
Yep.
So it's the not requireds are editing, the requireds are, dear town of Tiverton, you need to do this in order for us to bless your plan at statewide planning level. And so we have done, and just to tell you, I worked very closely with the town administrator to develop these responses. We have a planning consultant that developed the plan who will be actually taking these, created the draft amendments you see tonight, and will be folding those into the plan itself, and also a GIS consultant that created the new version of the future land use map that indicates the dedicated recreation areas, which was, I think, a very good catch on their part. So it's, with planning, it's always a team effort.
But essentially, if we don't move forward with this, we don't have a comprehensive community plan.
That
with
would be
these edits.
my understanding would be that the state would not approve the
Okay.
plan that we have now, correct?
So there's no reason for any more discussion then?
Well, we just want to make,
Can I ask one clarifying question, though? My understanding is that we might not have a plan that is approved by the state, but the comprehensive plan that we adopted as a community, as a council, that plan is adopted and is in effect for us.
That's correct, yes.
So we actually do have an adopted comprehensive plan. It may not have state holy water thrown on it, but it's still our adopted comprehensive plan. It still holds. It just is in places where we need a state-approved plan, like to get grant money or to participate in certain programs, we need the state to have blessed our version of it too.
That's a correct statement.
So there's really no discussion here then?
Well, this was just to approve the update.
All right.
Not this guy, not this.
Or do I have them? Oh, go ahead, Jim.
So on the 9.3, page 130, where it says, funding for the following areas is ranked as follows. It says programs inadequate, maintenance and upkeep adequate, staffing inadequate, land acquisition inadequate. Since we do have problems with our maintenance and upkeep, I'd say that that's inadequate.
I would agree.
Where are you, Jim? Yeah, say that
Page-
again, Jim, I'm sorry.
It's the second.
Recreation needs, right here.
Okay.
So, on table 9.4, the second one from the bottom,
Okay,
it
I
says
see
funding
it.
for the following areas is ranked as follows. I would consider maintenance and upkeep inadequate.
But before we do that, who did the ranking, who did these rankings for this?
This came from the Recreation Committee.
The Recreation Committee or Open Space?
Recreation.
This is obviously pre us tearing down a.
Correct. I
Playground.
received this 2 weeks ago, maybe.
Okay.
Okay.
But
I only say this because this relates to the SCORP plan. And I almost wish Brian Janes, paging Brian Janes. So the reason I'm asking this is that this language here relates to the SCORP plan, which is a critical component of being able to get grants. So what I don't know is, in terms of getting grants, if we rank everything inadequate, that hurts us or helps us, or where that puts us. So I'm a little curious about this. You haven't seen this, have you? You have no idea what we're talking about. So Brian James is on the Open Space Commission, and I would say that Brian knows more than anybody in the entire community about the SCORP plan and how to get a open space or recreation grant based on our SCORP score, which is why I'm asking him this. Brian, do
130.
you have a thought as to whether or not we have everything is ranked as inadequate in terms of SCORP, and whether or not that hurts us or it doesn't, or it makes it seem like we just are?
Really old.
I know.
You know, at least in the current plan, we've been able to pick out enough items, but the more specific.
I mean, would we be better off saying things like playground equipment inadequate? Instead of just sort of generally saying maintenance and upkeep, or?
Point out a kid put his leg through the playground equipment.
No,
So-
I know, but this makes a difference in getting grants. I mean, this is an
Can we put
important thing.
extremely inadequate, and then that'll differentiate itself a little bit more?
So
from
our
the rest of them?
maintenance could be field maintenance,
Mm-hmm.
but upkeep could
Right.
be referring
So, and our field
to,
maintenance could be good, or our maintenance of our parks, our,
As inclusive as possible, so we can drop in that language.
right.
I think the administrator would like to add
Say
to this
something,
discussion.
Cory.
Thank you. I think that a very good question was raised, what the effect might be of putting the word inadequate in here perhaps too many times. I do think it will raise questions as to, well, if that's the case, what do you plan to do about it? And being sent back to do more of an analysis. I personally think that this update plan is not going to resolve all issues. You could, in my opinion, say adequate but in need of improvement. And you could even have a footnote saying, you know, we want to develop a more robust program and maintenance program in particular. But that's, you know, that still needs to be discussed, because I will be making those recommendations, and certainly in the budget process, which is, I think, where this first needs to go. And then you can, reintroduce it. But I do agree you could have sort of inadvertent consequences if you paint too negative a picture.
I just worry a little bit if we, for example, are trying to get grant money for playground equipment, and we're saying, well, our maintenance and upkeep is inadequate, and somebody's gonna say, well, why do we wanna give them $100,000? You know what I mean? I don't want it to be so, but
The one before it says budget decreased about 40%. So
yeah, I
you can't keep considering maintenance and upkeep adequate if you keep reducing your budget
I agree.
to maintain it. That's all I'm
I
saying.
don't disagree, I just am worried about too much negatives in that part of the thing.
So how about adequate but needs improving?
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, I'd go with that. That's a great way of changing it, just a tweak.
Thank you,
Okay.
Brian.
So adequate, okay. Anything else from the council? Like to entertain a motion?
Madam President,
Council Edwards?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the updates to the comprehensive plan, including the amendment as discussed for inadequate or adequate but needs improvement, as posed by Councilor Hilton.
Do I have a second? Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous.
Hooray.
Thank you very much. We will
Thank
note
you
that
very
change.
much. Councilor Hilton and Ryan request update on Twin River Fire Detail. Which one of you want to take this? You want me to take it?
I think it's pretty straightforward.
Okay, so a little bit ago, we talked about a plan for staffing the fire detail at the casino. And my understanding, and I think it was Councilor Ryan's as well, was that the solicitor and the town administrator were going to work with Mark Rousseau at Twin River to come up with a model that would address a lot of the concerns that we had about having outside people under our name and being liable if they get injured and all that other kind of stuff, and how we staff this, and at the same time not asking our fire department staff to work shifts that they don't want to or calling them back. With the one caveat in all of this being that however this worked, our firefighters got first dibs on the shifts. So if they wanted to work those shifts, they got first choice. And I kind of thought that was, or I think we both thought that that was in process and we were getting someplace with it. And in the recent update, it sounds like we're still not there. So I don't know if we're still calling back our staff right now to fill these shifts, which I don't think is fair to them. And
We are, by the way.
we
Yeah.
are, and I don't think that that's fair to them. I think if the Tiverton Fire Department wants to sign up for those shifts, they should get the first choice, but I don't feel like we should be burdening them with callbacks because we haven't managed to get any place with this. So could we find out how we're doing on getting this implemented?
Well,
I know-
let me just add in, I also thought that, when I spoke with you, Tony, that you were also talking with Mark Rousseau.
Yes.
That was my understanding. So I was very surprised, and then it was like, okay, so then you're talking with Mark Rousseau, and it's like, because I thought you almost had a resolution going there, so it was like very confusing, because I'm thinking, what is going on?
Tony, I know you recently talked to Mark. Do you want to update us?
Well, actually, I think, like, the administrator
Okay.
did go first because he had it to report, and I'll just follow up.
So I think what happened after the council had given those instructions is that the solicitor first talked to Mark Russo and got the initial feedback that Twin River would be amenable. I was not privy to that or didn't actually know about that until later. And I kept asking, where are we on this? And I finally decided that because of the issue that we're going on with the calling back of the firefighters, we needed to know where Twin River was. And I called Mark Russo, and they hadn't really, it's true, they're still, according to him, amenable to this, but they haven't made a decision one way or another. And I'm sure they've had all kinds of other business to deal with first, but I said this is important because the current scenario is not sustainable. We can't do this basically any longer, so we need to have a resolution one way or another. So he was going to pick it up and run with it and talk to the decision makers at Twin River to try and get us a definitive answer. And then I think it would probably involve some further discussions between the lawyers in terms of if they have specific questions on the legal issues, they can work with the solicitor to try to work those out.
I know you recently talked to him.
Yes, I did. He gave me a call today, but what Twin River is looking at on this, and one of their concerns is if they had to coordinate bringing in firefighters that were active from other departments, that creates liability issues, which would for the town too, by the way. What their preference is and what they need direction from the town is whether or not they can follow a model not entirely like the police department, but similar to having retired firefighters, Tiverton, or other departments on call that they would have that would be Twin River employees. In order to do that, they would need to get a variance or waiver from the state fire board because that does not comply with the state fire code. But they can get a variance for that. The town would have to sign on, and they need to know that the town would do so. That would allow for a situation that if the Tiverton Fire Department could not get anybody there, no one wanted to go for that shift, or they couldn't for whatever the reason, that Twin River could bring in someone in their employ that would meet the conditions. That's what they'd need from the town and direction to go forward. And if that's the case, the town would have to sign on to that appeal and go forward in that fashion. But that gets you over the hump of having the town taking on any liability for someone coming in perhaps an IOD or some type of a situation. That's a difficulty for the town, but it'd also be a difficulty for Twin River too.
So our firefighters would have first dibs.
That's correct, yes.
And then if we couldn't fill the shift, then they would go to their employees.
That's correct, yes.
And I'm sure their employees, they are liable that these employees are certified and able to do the job.
Yes.
Be on Twin Rivers.
Yes.
How do we make this happen so that the fire department isn't getting all these callbacks now?
So what we have to do is jump on board to them going to the state for the waiver, is that correct?
Just authorize us to let Twin River know that this is something that the town would be amenable to, and that if an appeal is filed, that we would join in the appeal.
Any questions?
How does the fire chief feel about this?
I'm not sure.
How does the fire chief feel about this? Anybody?
Chief Ed?
Yes, sir. Chief, how do you feel about this?
I'd rather let the lawyers work forward on it for now, and we'll discuss it later. I think there's some parts that are being left out here and being missed, but I understand trying to get it resolved.
So what you need is a motion from us saying to go forward with this.
Yes, we'd explore. Yeah, we'd explore it, but this is specific as to.
Yeah, it's a different, slightly different approach.
Yes.
So
We
then-
were saying that the town will
Join the appeal.
join the appeal, if that's the correct
Yes.
wording? Okay, so that is different, that is more specific.
And I have another question, because this came up in the conversation, I thought it was with Mark Russo, because the state office sometimes says, well, your local fire marshal can make that decision, rather than, you don't have to go to the state board, so that needs to be sorted out as well. I don't know if there's a conflict there, or awkwardness, or whatever.
There may well be, either case. What,
But I think we have plenty of, instructions to go forward, and whatever it takes, including if we need an approval from the state board, I think we could do that. The council had already said that.
plain fact of the matter is what was just outlined does not comply with the state's fire code. That's why an appeal has to be taken.
So when you say appeal, that's the same as variance? You're doing it, you.
Correct, yes.
You're doing I mean, that's the legal term, the variance.
Terms are
You're doing-
interchangeable.
Yeah.
And if we get the appeal, it would be with the state fire marshal's approval, of course, it wouldn't be.
That's usually-
I'm assuming this is something that would go to the State Fire Board. I could be incorrect, but I don't think I am.
If I may add one more thing, I do think it's important to know that Twin River will have to do some other things to put things in place that make it work. You know, we have to think about hiring, scheduling, supervising. And that needs to be, because that's not what we would be doing, it's what they would be doing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
one
would
of-
do-
Correct.
they would
But
do
One
that
of the
takes a little
questions-
work, you know, which needs to be done, so.
One of the questions I have, though, is right now, we have firefighters there that are EMTs, cardiacs. When Twin River hires somebody, are they going to be cardiacs and EMTs, or just going to be fire? Are they just concerned with fire safety? Because that,
That may be why the chief
that's
has some problems.
different.
Well, that would have to be the discussion also, and I'm sure.
That's correct, yes.
part of the
Okay,
appeals would
because
be-
right now, we have, medical people there, firefighters, and they can handle medical situations.
I don't disagree with what Chief Lloyd said.
Okay.
There are details that have to be worked out, but we can't get to working out those details unless we move forward at this level. Certainly, there's other issues that are going to have to be addressed.
So simply, we're just saying go forward with.
That's
with
correct,
this-
yes.
With this plan. And then if there's problems, it will come back to the
Yes.
council.
And may I ask a question just for clarification purposes? And I understand that our guys are all cardiacs, and that's what we want. But according to the state law and the fire marshal, the people at Twin River, I thought were not there to provide medical services.
True.
I thought that they're there, the state requirement is that they're there in case of a big emergency, like there's a big fire or something. So while we may have a requirement for our staff to have that level of medical training, they may not for the other people that if they bring in is auxiliary or whatever you call it. Am I not understanding that the right way?
I think you are correct.
True, they're only there for 5
It also
minutes.
underscores the need. Now, first, this is going to take a change to the host community agreement, and as part of that, we ought to make sure that it is very specific about issues just like that.
Yeah, because
Other
originally it was for
responsibilities are
crowd
divided up.
enforcement,
That's what
not
it still
from,
is.
right.
Right, yeah.
That's what the fire marshal requires, but
Right.
we had crowd enforcement plus
Well,
EMTs,
only
so,
because, and that's because.
and that was
we-
part of the host agreement.
That's because our firefighters are also paramedics and
Right.
cardiacs. In some communities, they're not.
So
that's
now you're
why-
looking at bringing in a retired person who could just be a firefighter, not an EMT.
Right.
Could be you.
No, it won't be me, but it could be. So, somebody, you could be
Right.
getting somebody who's not an EMT.
Right, because
So
that
you're,
is what
you're
the,
giving up something, you're losing something to gain a firefighter.
right, but the state requires someone
Right.
to be there just
Right, that's what the
for-
state requires, right. But we are losing something if we,
Sometimes.
We may not be.
well, this is something we're just looking into,
Yeah.
correct?
I mean, we won't be losing it for us in our community. Our guys will still, who are taking care of us here, will still have the same little medical expertise. It's just that
Well, you'll be
So it-
losing it if you change the host agreement like they're saying. Because right now, we have firefighter EMTs there, and if we bring in out-of-town firefighter EMTs,
yeah.
we're gonna have the same coverage.
Yeah, but
if
we're
you
liable.
go to a retired, may not be an EMT, they just a
Well,
firefighter.
you could always say the preference would be firefighters EMT.
Can I ask a
Well,
question?
Right.
Yeah, I just want to say something, though. If there is an emergency there, an emergency that requires an ambulance, they have to call our guys anyway.
Oh, I know that, but I'm just saying,
what I mean.
sometimes the
All right.
first
Yeah,
5 minutes is the
so-
most important time.
Right, but-
When you're having cardiac arrest.
Right, but let's just hope that doesn't happen at the
Well, I'm just
casino quite
saying, yeah.
frequently, but
So-
that could happen at any restaurant also.
right.
Madam
But
President,
that wasn't, this was a host agreement that we had, that's what I'm,
so will we be putting this on for a vote at the next meeting then?
Can we vote tonight, or do we have to wait until the next meeting?
It's not on here as a vote.
Right, it isn't.
What you need to do is have a plan anyway. So that's what we'll be doing. At least, this was an update, at least you know where we're going on this thing.
Okay.
So everybody knows we're moving forward on this.
Right, and I think the general consensus among us, you can tell, is to move forward without a vote. At least no one has any objections. Okay.
I'll hold my objections.
Julie, and I'm going to pronounce this
Manafo.
wrong, Manafo, requesting a moratorium on the solar development until the solar ordinance has been reviewed to be sure it represents residents' interests and preserving Tiverton's rural character, continued from September 24th meeting, solicited desisto memorandum. Tony, would you like to start, or?
Yeah, as you can see, we spent a lot of time on this, maybe overthought things a little bit, but 2 points on this. As you can see from the memorandum, from a legal standpoint, moratorium is not the way to go. That just creates a lot of constitutional issues on it. That's the first thing. The second thing is some of you may have seen that the town of Exeter recently rescinded their vote for an ordinance that was similar to this. I spoke with the solicitors for the town of Exeter for quite some time on this, explained the situation that we have here as opposed to what happened in Exeter. Exeter has a 5-member town council. The vote was 3-2. One of the 3 votes, the council member was a Vietnam veteran. He has a hearing issue that stems from his service for the country. He was next to the air conditioner. He thought at the time with his yes vote that it was not for the version that was adopted. They had 8 different versions before them. He misunderstood what was going on because of the physical conditions that were in place at the time. On that basis, he asked that the vote be reconsidered so that he could cast his vote the way he wanted to vote. And that was determinative on it. We don't have that situation here. The vote was, I believe, 6-1. We don't have those conditions here present. You can't rescind the vote. My research indicates that what you would need to do here would be to repeal the ordinance at this time, and so that you could have a restart and take a look at it and go forward. Now, if you take a look at the memorandum from the planning board, one of the requirements for any amendment to the zoning ordinance is that the planning board review it, which they've already done. And that was one of their recommendations, that you repeal the ordinance and allow it to be redone, essentially. That accomplishes the same thing as the moratorium. You do need to have your advertising, which I believe is, Nancy, three times. It is a public hearing. That essentially functions as a moratorium. It will give the planning board, the town administrator, the town council an opportunity to take a look at the solar ordinance. Now you have some experience with it, and you can adopt it as any way you see fit. Or you can only amend pieces of it, allow for residential and things of that nature. But if you ask for my recommendation, that's the way to go. I'll answer any questions you may have.
How about the people right now that has applications in them? They can go forward.
Under state law, under section 45-24, when an application is filed, the regulations that are in place at the time the application is filed, they control. So that will not affect any application that is currently pending or is filed before the amendment. So you have about a month window or so to go. Nancy, can this be at the November 27th meeting? Is there enough time?
26th meeting.
Can you get me an advertisement?
I can get it to you tomorrow morning, if that's the vote.
If you get it by 10 o'clock, I'll put it in the paper, the 26th. and then-
Okay. Just one question. So, say this goes to public hearing and the council repeals, then there is no zoning ordinance. What happens with projects coming in at that time?
If they've already been filed?
No, they're not filed
No.
yet.
If they get filed while there is no ordinance in place?
It's not a permitted use.
Are you saying filed or at an application certified complete or master plan approval? Like where do they become vested?
based on the McGinnis case,
Yeah.
I should say that the application is certified as complete.
Okay,
I beg your
so
pardon.
the application, so it's not just filed, it's certified.
That's
the
correct,
application's
yes.
certified complete.
That's correct. I
And-
beg your pardon.
And just to answer the question, because I think people in the audience have this, even though there is at least one plan that is at the master plan stage, it still has to go through preliminary plan. It, just because something is approved at master plan stage does not mean it has full approval. It still has a ways to go in the process, and depending on whether or not it does or does not meet the ultimate criteria is how it will end up, correct, Tony?
That's correct, yes.
Any other questions?
Madam President?
Yes.
I just have a couple of points that I wanted to make. I'm a little concerned with the idea of just full-blown repealing the ordinance and leaving us in a very odd state of flux. One of the reasons why we put the ordinance forward in the first place is because we had some farms that wanted to do something on a smaller portion of the land, and my concern is that if we repeal the ordinance entirely, that could cause problems for smaller residential residential programs. Can we repeal a specific portion of the ordinance, or would it have to be the full ordinance?
You could repeal just segments of it. You would have that option.
Okay. And then secondly, because it comes up in all of these letters, we've received a number of letters at the council. It's dealing specifically with Wingover Farm. You're Julie, right? Yeah. Are you, can I ask a question? Is there any relation between you and the ownership of Wingover Farm? Okay, the only reason why I asked that is because I've seen the council in my last 2 years here get involved in a number of cases where it's neighborhood disputes or family disputes, and I want to be cautious that we're not going down a path where this is driven by a family dispute solely and put the town in a situation where we shouldn't be. So I just wanted to bring that up to the solicitor as well.
Madam President?
Yes.
When we passed the solar ordinance, Windover Farm and a couple other, or one other, have application processes already well into. I just want to make sure a repeal, as much as we might have made a mistake by giving that ordinance out, people invested money, and I don't want to see them lose their money. If we said yes, then people still have the right to move forward, just to make it nice and clear so people like me understand.
When an application is filed and certified as complete, the regulations that are in place at the time it's certified as complete control.
But isn't it a certain percent complete, which I was told in the past, so long as you have X amount done?
No, that's the shall, and I hate to get like this.
Okay, that's all right, get this, I want to understand exactly before I vote.
That's the Shalvey doctrine. There was a lawsuit, Shalvey versus the Warwick Zoning Board of Review. Your application, you actually had to be forward in building it. Since that time, the Enabling Act has been amended to say that your application's control at the time the application is filed and certified as complete. By the way, that was the issue in the McGinnis case, which the town was successful in, at the Superior Court level.
So you're saying these people, unless it's marked complete, any money they spent on anything is lost? If it doesn't pass?
If someone is in process with an application and the ordinance is repealed, as to that project, yes.
But here's the thing, on any application, until you get your full preliminary plan approval, I mean, there's always a risk. Even if we didn't repeal the ordinance, you can still come forward with something, and at the end of the day, for one reason or another, it doesn't get approved. I mean, there is a certain amount of risk in any sort of application for a big building project, because there are multiple layers of approval, or, you know, that's just part of life. I mean, there's not any way around that, so.
I agree, except we passed this ordinance so these people could move forward. You know what I'm saying?
Well, here's the thing, I will say this. When we passed this ordinance, particularly in the south part of town, one of the things, and I know that I looked at it this way, and I think a lot of people did, which is that there may be farmers out there who we want to be able to hang onto their farmland. And that if they could have this, little bit of auxiliary solar to help them, be able to continue to farm. So, and this started with one farm property, which, by the way, that farm property that this whole thing started over has actually never come forward with an application. So it all started for one farm property that never came forward. But so far, none of the applications that we've seen are that. None of them are applications where it's a farm property that says, I'd like to take this couple of fields or this little section and put in solar. What we're seeing we're seeing farmland actually completely go away as farmland. And I don't think, at least in my mind, that was the intention of what we were thinking when this happened. So, I would rather go forward with a public hearing to repeal it, even if at the end of the day, when it comes to that public hearing, whether we're here or not, whether the whole thing gets repealed or whatever the council is, hopefully decides, maybe they only repeal part of it, maybe only pieces of it, and go back and identify the things that, the law of unintended consequences, plus get some direction from the state, because they're already working on this too, and have one good, solid ordinance that we feel like is going to serve the town well going forward, than to keep, letting applications come in and go down this, what I think is going to be a really, really messy road if we don't do something.
Well, I agree with everything, and I agree that we made a mistake. I made, personally, if I had it right now in front of me, I would not have passed, I wouldn't have voted for that ordinance. I believe I did. But I just don't like seeing people waste money, spend money on something that we passed. I feel their pain, and that's all.
I don't think that there's anybody in this who has invested.
Nope. Yeah.
Madam President.
Huge amounts of money in, most of the time in the planning for this, you're not talking about, gobs and gobs of money. I don't even think that if I'm not mistaken, is the Wingover Farm property technically even sold yet? It's not. It's not even sold yet. The applicant doesn't even own the property yet. So I don't feel like we're, and their plan is approved. Their plan is at master plan stage, so it's vested. They can continue to go down.
Well, I just don't want to hurt, how I am with the businesses, and it was a business. If it doesn't hurt anybody, I'm all for repealing. I might not even be sitting here next month, who knows? But
Madam
we'll see.
President?
Yes.
So, a couple of things. One of the things, I think, I don't remember what the vote was. I think it was 6-0. I don't know if John, 6-1. I think we all acted on the best. What we knew at the time was great. What happened after we passed that is that all this information was coming out in Rhode Island, in Massachusetts, in Vermont. Everybody was pulling back, and they were pulling back for good reasons. So to me, it was like when I started looking at more of the stuff, I was like, oh my God, this is awful. And I think it was the law of unintended consequences. The thing what you're saying, to me, it's like, okay, everybody who goes in, and we've seen it again with people who go put in a plan, it's got to get revised, they put in that's all money. And they know when they're going in that there's going to be a certain amount of money that they have to, thank you, that they have to put up. And so, that's what they're doing. At a certain point, they either pull out or they don't. But as far as I'm concerned, as much as that could be difficult for the person, I think what we really have to do is the best interest of the town. And that's where ultimately I come down, because I think the best interest of the town is that there are so many questions and there are so many problems with this solar. I was just up in Providence a couple of nights ago, listening to the farmers who were just looking for a couple of acres, but I'm also looking at the other people who are just coming in and saying, I'm a developer, you can't tell me what to do, I'm just taking that whole thing over. And that's where you have to do the balance, and that's where I'm saying, we got to repeal, as far as I'm concerned, we should repeal this and get it straight. And I think we can do it sooner rather than later without more people losing their money. So if they still want to come in, they're still going to be under risk that they're going to put some money in, and they might lose it. So that's where I'm coming in, that it's more the town, and I understand what you're saying about individuals, but I think the town has got to have the priority.
Right, we had that discussion a couple of weeks ago, you and me, and we're both on the same page. It's
Yeah,
just-
that's what I thought.
Yeah, it just bothers me when people.
It bothers me too,
Yeah,
but
I
it was
just
like
can't-
we did act, I thought we did act in good faith. We thought we were doing a good thing.
Yep.
And so did all these other people, but when everybody else is pulling back and say, wait a minute, put the brakes on, we're going too fast here.
I'll be the
That's-
first one to sign the repeal, but I just don't
Okay.
want to bother the people
Okay,
that already
okay,
have it
that's
coming.
good.
All right, so, Tony, what should the motion say? Make it legal for the repeal.
Before we begin, I think the administrator has something to say.
Okay. He usually speaks up for himself. Go ahead.
Well, I was hesitant. I asked for something to be included in your packet that is a slightly alternative approach, which is instead of posting for public hearing a repeal, is to post a simple amendment that I think addresses several of the concerns that have been raised. One is, the biggest concern is that we're dealing with not yet disturbed land that gets taken over for a solar farm. And the other concern is that very large-scale properties, not that they automatically get approved, that's a huge misperception, as Councilor Hilton has pointed out. And I think that's very important for people to understand that just because the ordinance makes it a permitted use doesn't mean that it will be approved. But arguably, the larger projects that are being proposed for land that has not been disturbed, is not in a disturbed condition, deserve a higher level of review, as in a special use permit review rather than a permitted use review. That could be a very simple amendment that could be posted in the same time frame as a repeal. But if that were to go to public hearing and pass, you immediately could continue with the smaller projects, including the farmers, because the farmers are competing with very big developers now. Developers who have plenty of resources, can hire all their consultants and are going full steam ahead. I think most of the farmers have a hard time keeping up with that and getting their proposals figured out with either consultants or family members or whatever it may be. This would allow that to go forward, which I think is consistent with the original spirit in which the council adopted the ordinance. So it's just an alternative approach, maybe a little difficult to understand why we would go that way, but I think it could actually save time and maybe have less impact where you don't want the impact and focus the impact where you want it.
Madam President, I just, from my readings of solar, I think there is no simple answer. I think there's a lot of questions out there, and I think there are also a lot of people who have been working on it, including people in the state. So I would rather not go with a simple one. I would rather go with a repeal and do it right.
Anyone else?
I would agree, and honestly, when I look at this, this basically would turn all of these things into special use permits. Well, it says special permit, that these could only be granted by special permit, so they become special
For the
use
big
permits.
ones. The big ones on undisturbed.
For the big ones and the largest, but, when you create a special use permit, now every special use permit is open to the interpretation of the zoning board and what criteria they're going to apply or not apply. And I don't think that addresses the issue. It doesn't address the issue, now that we know. I've been looking at other sort of model solar ordinances where they do have agricultural land that they're trying to save, where they have all these things incorporated into the ordinance. Now this only turns it over to the zoning board of review and says on any given property, it's going to be up to the zoning board of review. I don't want that. I want a set of, this is the ordinance, these are the guidelines. And I think not only is that better for us, I think it's better for the applicant, because, then you know what is here. I think, I'd like to see us go ahead and repeal it, if, at least advertise to repeal the whole thing. Maybe the council that is here, then hopefully they like the idea, maybe at the end of the day, they don't repeal all of it, they only vote to repeal part of it. But I think that's the cleanest, better way to do it. I just don't see putting it in the special use category is a good solution.
Anyone else?
Actually, I would tend to agree with that. I feel like I'm just kicking the can down over to the zoning board of review, and I really don't think that's fair. If the ordinance has major issues with it, then it should be repealed, and let's do a good job.
Anyone else? I'd like to entertain a motion then. And Tony, that's when I asked if it was a repeal motion, how do you want us to state it?
Accept the solicitor's memorandum and set the matter down for a repeal of the solar ordinance on November 27th.
So moved.
Second.
I'm sorry, November 26th.
My birthday.
Happy birthday.
So we have a.
No, it's early yet.
A second, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Do you
Unanimous.
think the 26th, you'll have time to do it that night? 'Cause
Supposed to be the
that's the
advertisement.
first meeting after the elections. Might be a little
probably
jam
won't.
that night.
Let it happen.
Well, we might not even.
If-
Well, I'm just saying,
You can continue it, but you can get it
Yeah.
done.
Yeah, it can be continued. If it's a brand-new council that doesn't know anything about this, it
Right,
may
that's what
have
I'm
to be
saying.
continued.
Speaking of brand new stuff, I got something to do.
remember when we were there.
Too many drinks.
All right, go ahead. I couldn't figure out what you had to do right now. All right,
Don't even want to ask.
new business, approval of council resolution addendum to purchase and sales agreement and warranty deed to Southern Rhode Island Properties Incorporated, 100 Aquidnet Avenue, Middletown, Rhode Island, plot 107, lots 801, 802, and portion of 803, business industrial park self-storage. Someone want to explain this?
Sure. This project has been before the council in executive session, and also the applicant has been before the council in a regular council meeting. Due diligence had to follow, and also 3 lots had to be merged to be able to actually go forward with this project. It's my understanding that all that is complete and has gotten the administrative approval. The other change that has happened is that the buyer, Mr. Almeida, has decided to designate another entity as the purchaser, Southern
Rhode Island Properties.
Southern Rhode Island Properties, so that the purchase and sale agreement needed to be amended. And also, there is an addendum to the purchase and sale agreement that you would need to approve. And in addition, the deed is now ready to be executed as well. So that's why it's before you today. It is a property of about 3.3 acres on the corner of Industrial and Progress Way. And I think you know the details
Yep.
of it, so.
Do I need to read the resolution, or, no, okay,
Madam President,
yes.
make a motion to approve the council resolution addendum to purchase and sales agreement and warranty deed to Southern Rhode Island Properties Incorporated, 100 Aquidneck Ave, Middletown, Rhode Island.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion's been made and second. Any further discussion? Go ahead.
I have just one question. On Exhibit A, which, because we don't have a map, Lot A on administrative plan, is Lot A different than what was on the plan that we saw when we,
Now, Lot A is the new lot created by merger of the plan that you saw, of the lots that you saw on the plan that was discussed with the council.
So it's the same exact?
It's the
it's
same,
the
yeah.
same exact
Exact property.
Okay. Okay. And second question, Tony, you have reviewed this?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so, I have a motion and a second. Yeah. All those in favor? Unanimous.
No, because I don't know what you were talking about, I was somewhere else.
So you
guys got-
abstain. So you abstain.
Yeah, I'm gonna abstain.
6-0.
We all know where you were.
I know,
Okay.
didn't know which one, I want to vote on something, I don't know what I was doing.
Very good. Town Administrator, approval of amendments to the contract with Municipal Code Consulting, MCC, for interim building services. Yeah,
This is the result of us going back out to bid for or request for proposals for services that help us tie us over from the vacancy that occurred quite some time ago. And hopefully we'll be able to appoint a new building official at some time. Previously, we were able to select Municipal Code Consulting because there had been an earlier request for proposals for services that we needed in the casino context. And Municipal Code Consulting, as well as Four Leaf, were the applicants for that. Four Leaf was selected for that one, and so it was decided that we could still piggyback on that particular process to put an arrangement in place with Municipal Code Consulting. Because that arrangement is actually lasting a lot longer than we had hoped would be necessary, we thought it would be a good idea to, or you thought it would be a good idea to go out to bid again. And lo and behold, we had the exact same two applicants applying. The proposal by Municipal Code Consulting, I will say, is very responsive to some of the concerns that I had discussed with them. In particular, the need to have someone here on a very regular basis in the morning who can interact with the people that come in for help or for information or to get certain decisions. And so they have proposed to provide that, and that person will do that kind of work in the morning and do inspections in the afternoon. So it's my hope that that will, at least for the time being, provide some relief for people who are getting very frustrated that they haven't been able to interact with the building official. They've also offered to give us a flat fee for 40 hours per week, which is a much better financial outcome for us than what we currently have. I was able to convert that into hourly rates and compared it to what Four Leaf had to offer and decided this was by far the lower cost. So with that, I would recommend that you authorize us to go forward with Municipal Code Consulting.
any discussion?
Madam President?
Yes.
Just one question, and I'll make a motion at the same time. Tony, are we good on these amendments?
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve the amendments to the contract with Municipal Code Consulting for interim building services.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Are we still actively looking?
Yep.
Yes.
And we don't have any applicants, nothing?
I don't know about.
Nobody out there.
We had no applicants.
So we are
In the
actively
second-
looking, but there's no one out there.
We could extend it, and we probably should. Oh.
So motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor? Unanimous.
Boy, this room empty.
Town Administrator approval of application to Stockweather
Shepley.
Shepley. I'm sorry, it looked like Shopley on this one.
You know,
For
Shopley.
performance bond in the amount of $39,970 for work done by DPW within right of way at Grinnell's Beach. Town Administrator or Trish?
It is what it says. It involves work at the entrance to Grinnell's Beach along Main Road. There is a section that would be within the right-of-way that is owned by DOT, and the town is apparently not exempt from having to post a performance bond when we do the work there, even though it's very unusual that we have to do this. And it took a little while to figure out where we get the bond and everything else, but this is an almost local company, well-known, that
might
is
pick a
able
different
to
one, but-
provide the services.
Costs about $400 for this one,
That's correct.
which will be funded out of the Grinnell's Beach.
Mhm.
Right.
Madam President?
Basically to make sure we don't make a mess of their sidewalk.
So I'd like to entertain a motion.
Madam President?
Yes.
Motion to approve the application to Starkweather and Shepley for performance bond in the amount of $39,970 for work done by DPW within RIDOT right-of-way at Grinnell's Beach to be funded by the Grinnell's Beach project.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Town Administrator, approval of P&S to Robert A. Lance Incorporated, Portsmouth, Rhode Island, for plot 109, lots 32, 33, 34, 35, in business industrial park for $270,000, and authorization for council president to sign P&S.
I don't have a copy of this.
I don't either.
No,
You
Nancy,
don't have a
don't,
copy of the purchase and sale?
no, don't you
There's
remember
no
I gave
copy
it?
of a picture.
Yes, I gave you the purchase and
yes,
sale.
you did.
Yeah, I did. And
I
I asked you to
have-
copy it.
I have a copy of it, it's G4.
Yeah, but you didn't.
Yeah, I
give it
go,
to
I
us.
literally go G2 to G6 in my
Yeah,
backup.
me
Make
too.
a copy of that.
No
I
four,
tell you, they
no
were
3, 4, and
People
5.
out here putting this together.
Jeannie's
last minute,
fault.
and that's what
It was
you
those
want.
little.
All right, because I thought I gave it to you, so could you make copies, Jeannie, or somebody, so we can look at it?
Jeannie's
I can
fault.
make copies, but there is no diagram of what this is.
No, but we have,
Can't tell.
but this was an executive session, and I believe, this, what we're talking about.
And this is another project in the industrial/business park. And it's approximately
least
6
somebody had
acres off of Progress Way.
It's what is it, could you speak?
6 acres off of Progress Way, it's for the wood,
The wood processing facility, basically.
Did we
yeah.
get an increase on the price?
Excuse me?
Did we get more money on the land than what
Yes.
we originally did?
yes.
Yeah, actually, it was more than I told you the last time we had the
Okay.
discussion. The
All right.
executive says it's $270,000 that we're getting.
Want to get as much as we can.
Madam
I
President?
want you all to review the sales and purchase, please, yes,
Since this was discussed in an executive session I was not at, I will be abstaining from this vote.
okay. Are we supposed to call Tim?
He's supposed to be here.
Okay, fine.
I don't know what happened.
Why don't we get the sales and purchase? We'll take a couple of seconds so that you can all review the sales and purchase, because I think it's important. I did give it to Nancy to put in here, but we apologize.
It's in my
All right, so we'll just take a couple of seconds till we
That's all
get.
that
Do you
matters.
want to
have
move
it.
past
That's
to
all that
number
matters.
5? I'll make a motion to move that up.
Yeah, I can keep moving forward until we get it. Town admin, so I'm gonna move forward.
Joe?
Joe,
Yes.
Chief Jones will be an executive with
Okay.
us, so. I'm gonna skip to G5.
Are
Town
you
ad-
coming?
Oh, you're moving
Wait a
right
minute.
along? I don't have G5. How
We don't
come?
have G5.
I don't have G5.
There is nothing on
On G5.
G5.
And it-
Why are you saying G5?
Because there is a G5.
because there is
Still
a
want that picked up by
G5.
They're really cheap.
We've been doing really well up to this point, okay? Let's.
All right, hold on, we're back. We got P&S's going on here.
Oh, my God.
On that note, I'm taking a break.
Yeah, I'm taking a break so people can read this. And people have to.
Recess. I'm going home.